Ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. I think our president has actually kind of had us at a little delay today, and a lot of us got caught up on 526. It is not common for us to be in other roads that we have through Charleston that kind of got us caught up. So without any delay, I will go ahead and get this meeting started. For those individuals who are in the back and need to sign in, please go ahead and continue to do so. At this time, I'd like to call to order the January the 8th, 2024 meeting of the Charleston County Board of Zoning and Appeals, also known as the BZA. The board members that will hear your case tonight, to my right, we have Mr. Marchant. We don't, not yet, I'm sorry.
He won't be here tonight.
He won't be here tonight. So we have Mr. Jordan, Mr. Neal, we have Ms. Switzer Smalls, and Mr. Williams. And to my immediate right, we have our attorney, Mr. Kevin Hughey. Staff members present tonight, we have a new member. Welcome him, Mr. Grayson Anderson, Ms. Sally Brooks, Ms. Clark, Mr. Joshua Downey, and Ms. Jenny Workin, who is our BZA secretary. Because the hearing tonight is a public fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Act and South Carolina Code 6-29-70. 15 days prior to the meeting, a sign was posted on or near the designated property, and a notice was mailed to the applicant or the applicant's representatives, to the property owners within 300 feet of the property, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and news media that had requested declaration of our meeting has also been notified. Board members, meeting notes of December the 4th were mailed to you. Are there any questions or any changes? If not, can I get a motion to approve and a second?
You approve?
Okay, I have a motion to approve and second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, so very good. It carries. Thank you. Our case rulings from this and any BZA meetings are available to the public viewer for inspection during normal business hours at the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department. The Board of the the Board of the Zoning and Appeals is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority on the following: appeals of a zoning-related administrative decision. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged that it's an error in the order, requirement, decision, or the determination made by the administrative official in the administration or the enforcement of a zoning-related regulation. A 2/3 vote of the quorum is required to overturn the decision of the planning director for an appeal. We also have a special exception. A special exception is issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use specified in a location where the zoning district, upon demonstrating that it complies with all the conditions and standards specified in the Zoning and Land Regulation Ordinance, also known as ZELDAR. The BZA must find that the special exception meets all 6 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant a special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. And then finally, we have a variance. A variance is a relaxation of the regulations of the ordinance where such an action will not be contrary to the public interest and to the conditions particular to the property, and not the results of the action or the situation of the applicant. Its literal enforcement of this code would result in the unnecessary and undue hardship of such a variance is consistent with section 6-29-800 of the Code of the State of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find that the variance meets all 7 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant a variance. a simple majority is needed to grant a variance. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist the board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If a board member of the BZA feels a need for further evidence to clarify the case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It is understood that the rules of your neighborhood or subdivision are binding and that we can take no action to negate their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented with written information submitted by the staff, by the applicant, or the applicant's agent for each case. This information is now considered to be evidence and is entered into the permanent body. It is assumed that it is complete, true, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data assembled by staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the application effects on surrounding properties. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or deny special exception or a variance request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. The BZA's final decision will be mailed within 10 working days of this public hearing and will be mailed, certified mail, to the applicants and by U.S. mail to neighbors and the community of interest. If an applicant's request is approved, an applicant should contact the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department staff to discuss the next steps in the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after this meeting. A 1-year extension may be granted if construction or development has been commenced or is diligently pursued. However, if an applicant's request is disapproved and the applicant wishes to appeal the decision of this board concerning a case, an appeal must be addressed to circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that an appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 calendar days after the decision of this board has been mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit deprives this court of jurisdiction to hear a case. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All of the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made either in writing or orally. Each person who wishes to speak or address this board will be sworn in by the BZA secretary before providing testimony or evidence. In order to expedite this, at this time I ask that everyone who wishes to speak to please stand as a group, and our secretary will administer the oath.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I will say the oath and you will say, I do. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do.
Thank you. I will now call each case by case number. Staff will be presenting facts that are pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I would then call the applicant. The applicant will stand and state his or her name and the current address for the record before presenting testimony that's pertinent to the case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then ask for those speaking either in support or opposition to the case. They will follow the same procedure for identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes. The applicant will then have a chance to reply to the opposition, also limited to 2 minutes. And then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific findings of facts and conclusion of law. Tonight, we will hear 6 new cases. Ms. Workin, I think we'll start off with a little change tonight, if I'm correct.
We're going to start with the first one. They're here.
Okay, we start with the first one?
Yep.
Very good. So our first case is BZA 11-23-00728 and 9.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant for these cases is Barry Whalen of HLA Inc., and the property owner is George Gratzik of GANB LLC. They are requesting 2 variances for property located at 3253 Maybank Highway, which is TMS number 279-00000206 on Johns Island in Charleston County. The 1.64 acre subject property is located in the Johns Island Maybank Corridor Overlay, the Limited Commercial LC zoning district. Surrounding properties are located in the city of Charleston's jurisdiction. This is the overlay map. This project is currently in the site plan review process. The first variance is a request to remove 3 grand trees and to encroach more than 25% of the protected area of 1 grand tree. More specifically, the applicant is requesting to remove a 29-inch diameter breast height DBH grand cedar tree, to remove a 35-inch grand cedar tree, and that's a double trunk tree, to remove a 38-inch live oak double trunk, and to encroach a 61.5-inch DBH grand live oak tree, and that is a triple trunk, and the encroachment is 53.49%. The proposed plan preserves the 27-inch DBH grand red oak located to the rear of the property. The second variance request is to relocate the required 8-foot perimeter landscape area to an easement on the adjacent property, which is TMS 279-00000205, and to reduce the required 25-foot type D land use buffer by 15 feet to 10 feet. These are the ZELDAR requirements, the zoning ordinance requirements for the first case and the second case. This is the radius, the 300-foot radius map. Zoomed in aerial, zoomed out. This is the posting for the first case. We conducted a site visit on the subject property on December 8th, 2023. This is the 29-inch cedar tree that they wish to remove. The 35-inch cedar tree they wish asking to remove. The 38-inch live oak tree asking to remove. And this is the 61.5-inch tree that they are asking to encroach over the 25%. Here's a couple of pictures of the subject property and Maybank Highway. This is the posting for the second case. This is the site plan, Exhibit 1 for the variance one. It's in your packet. And this is another site plan, just kind of more clear on the grand tree types. And then this is the site plan for the second case, Exhibit 2, and the plot. So for the cases, we received 17 letters of opposition, and those are in your supplemental packet. We are going to pass out a clarification from the applicant tonight that we got. If you can, yeah. Regarding the first variance, the grand tree variance, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and that it meets 5. For variance number 2, the landscape buffer variance, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and that it meets 5. So please note that for the trees, each tree may be considered separately for approval conditions, or denial. You don't have to do a straight up or down on trees. And the board may approve with conditions, or deny the cases based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. That's the wrong side. Okay, this is for the first case. Condition number 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process. 2, the applicant shall mitigate the removal of the 102 inches by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2 1/2 inches in caliper, equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund as described in Section 926 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. Or C, a combination of both A and B. The allotted mitigation shall be in place prior to removal. 3, if the grand tree requested for encroachment, and that's the 61.5-inch live oak, dies within 3 years of the installation or completion of the project, the applicant shall mitigate the tree by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2½ inches in caliper, equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds in the Charleston County Tree Fund as described in section 926 of ZELDAR. Or C, a combination of both A and B. The allotted mitigation shall be in place prior to its removal. 4, tree barricades constructed of chain link fencing shall be installed around all protected trees within 40 feet of disturbance prior to any construction pursuant to section 924 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. 5, the applicant shall retain a certified arborist to monitor and treat all grand trees on site through the duration of construction. The applicant shall provide a copy of the treatment plan to zoning staff for review and approval prior to site plan review. And for the second case, we just have 2 conditions, suggested conditions. One is that the 8-foot landscape easement shall be recorded on TMS number 27900000205 prior to site plan review approval. And 2 is prior to site plan review approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process. You have any questions? Before?
Let me start on this side tonight. Mr. Williams?
Mr. Burton, have they indicated what they are intending to build on this property or to develop on the property?
Yes, I have that. I don't know if I have that with me. Hold on, sorry. Sorry, this is my summary. I have that full report. The applicant's letter of intent explains that, in quotes, the applicant proposes 3 new buildings for use as economic development, special trade, while retaining 1 existing building for office use. So, that.
Yes, sir.
2 questions. In fact, using the site plan that you've got here. So I see the 3 trees that we'll get into that in a minute with the applicant, I'm sure. So the variance request to encroach more than 25% of the protected area, that would be the large tree in the middle.
Correct.
But there's another tree on the end down there by that cottage or house that's currently there, and that's showing encroachment. Is there something changing with that, or is that something that's already done and in place, and that's not part of the request?
So correct me if I'm wrong, Sally, but I think this is the 27 they're preserving, and it's under 25%. Is that right? Okay.
Can you say that again?
This is the 27-inch tree that they are going to keep, and it didn't need a variance because it's under the 25%.
Okay, so the 25% protected area is just for the large tree in the middle. And what, can you go over the percentages? I can't see that real well. Is it at 35 or something? What are the percentages that they're trying to go to or that needs the variance so we can clearly?
It was 53.49% encroachment.
Be more than 25.
Correct. So
Right.
the variance
So we're
is
talking
for
53
the
to
difference.
25. Okay, thank you. I'll have
Yeah.
questions for the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Mr. Truslow, you had a question?
I do. Thank you for your presentation, and I think I know the answer, but so the record will be clear. If the trees are cut, I know there's a formula, but there's a replacement schedule, if you will. They can either pay money into a fund or they can replace the tree. The trees aren't simply cut. If they're cut, they're going to be replaced, or money is going to be provided for them to be replaced in the near future. Is that right?
Yeah, as long as you guys grant it with those conditions. Yeah.
So in this case, approximately, if there are 3 trees that are cut, approximately, let's say they're going to replace the trees. How many trees, I know it's not a 1-to-1.
Right.
But how many, if you've got 3 trees, approximately how many trees will be?
So 102 inches, she's probably doing the math.
So 102 inches, yep. Say you were to buy a 3-inch caliper tree at the nursery, that would equal 34 trees.
Okay. So 3 are gone, 30-something or
Wait,
what are
did I do
pretty?
that right? 102 divided by.
And that's also why we always offer the combination, because sometimes it's not feasible to do 34 trees. They maybe could do half of that or something.
That would be in addition to any already required landscaping on the property. So it's likely that that many trees probably would not fit on the site in addition to that. So that's why we give the option for the tree fund or a combination of planting and the tree fund. Yeah.
And if they were choosing to not plant trees, but put the money in so that in the county's discretion, they can plant trees where they're needed, approximately how much money is involved in that? Do we
Yeah,
know?
that comes up what?
I know it's a lot.
Right. A good approximation would be just say $500 per tree. So
Okay.
34 times 500, $17,000.
All right,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Mr. Neal, you had another question?
Yeah, I had a follow-up on the second thing, and Mr. Supelo helped me lose my mind on it, so I'll follow up. I'm good right now. Thank you.
I have a question. The easement being, that's what it was. Could you tell us a little bit more about the easement procedure and how quickly they would need to get that enforced?
Well, it would just have to be approved before they get the site plan review approval, the easement recorded.
Recorded, yes.
Onto that other property. This is the plan here that's showing that.
Okay, go ahead.
That was my follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not used to seeing an easement or the landscape buffer being put on a different property. So is this the property that's owned by the same client, or is this something, is this common that's been done before?
The properties are owned by the same people, and it has been done before, but that is why we would require it to be recorded if it were to be sold, that the person that buys the property knows that the easement has been placed on.
So that satisfies the county on what it needs for future sale of other properties?
Yeah, put prospective buyers on notice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Working. All right, is the applicant present? All right, so,
The owner, my name is Barry Whalen.
okay, now, if you would, we're only gonna do one at a time. So whoever wants to lead on that, please go ahead and state your name and address for the record, and we
Yep.
can start there,
And we'll
okay?
I'll discuss a few points. Barry Whalen, HLA 130 Dunham Avenue. And I will explain a few things and then introduce Mr. Gratzik, who will also explain, as the owner and somebody that's owned this property for some time, some very important additional facts. So if we could put the site plan back up on the board, it'd be something just so we could go and, yes, that one, that's fine. That one. The property itself has actually got an existing road on it that runs right beside those two cedars that you see the large red X's through, and
You know, my eyes are good, but they're not that good.
We got a
Yeah.
chance of that.
and it's just to give you an
No,
idea.
You can come a little bit closer. I won't bite you, I promise you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Put it right there in front of us. We can all see it.
Yes, thank you. It's a little easier to be able to see. What happens is that where the road comes through, the existing drive has
Oh,
a
yes.
power easement right alongside with it, and it runs right along the property. We have proposed to put the road, expand it to where it's a safe standard that allows for emergency vehicles and the necessary access to provide formal access into the property. And if you look at those trees, those pink lines that I showed there is where the existing road is, and it runs right underneath those trees. We're not so much taking out trees that are somehow avoidable, they're already impacted. And you even see the character of the trees. They're trimmed up into lollipops. And in other words, it's a healthy tree, but it's not really a vibrant tree in the community. Whereas when you replace the trees that we're asking for mitigation from with, if we had in mind 41 2.5-inch trees, so it costs $20,000, you'll actually replant a lot more trees than what the value of those two. That tree that's on the top, the reason why that is being impacted, that is actually where there's a cross-circulation route that's been worked with the different routing, not just this property owner, but up and downstream from that to provide parallel access to Maybank Highway. And in fact, the first there's a access to a building immediately adjacent there. The goal to go through here is to go ahead and close off their access on the Maybank Highway from that separate track and to go ahead and consolidate into one point of access. So that the reasoning behind this, and that's where they're served through the same electric line coming down. It's actually consolidated and makes sense of an existing rural pattern that's evolving into what I'll say what the pattern of development that allows for the economic development that Mr. Gratzik's going to talk about in a moment. And one other point is the large tree that we're talking about, how much impact there is. If you look at that, you'll see a graphic, whereas the actual canopy of the tree is the much smaller, almost football-shaped outline. The larger outline is not where the canopy is. That's actually where it's the zoning recognized canopy. It's a standard set aside to try to make sure that when you don't know what the size of the real canopy is, to make sure to accommodate it. We actually surveyed the real canopy, and that's what you see. So only that brown area that you see that's outlined on a very much smaller percentage of it is actually going to be the impact to the tree itself. With that, I just wanted to give some of that background. Would like to have Mr. Gratzik explain some of the purpose of the economic development and some of the conversations he's had with the neighbors.
Okay, but before we do that, let me see if any of these board members have a question for
Sure.
you, and then we'll give him an opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I'm going to start off with Mr. Neal since he's to my right. Mr. Neal?
Yes, thank you. So looking at your site plan, which I think is great, and thank you very much for all the detail. I like the contiguous spaces you're adding to help other full access. So I really, so far, I don't have any hang up on the removal of the 3 trees because I know it's going to be a significant, what is your plan? Is your plan to put trees out there or is your plan to put it into the bank?
Right now, the goal would be to identify get approval from the process. We'll either go ahead and make an arrangement with the county to go ahead and pay into the tree bank.
Okay.
Other options.
I was just wondering.
Yeah.
All right, so really my concern is the large tree, because that's a very large tree, and the impact zone, and I appreciate your comments about the canopy, but it's always about the root ball and getting this much impact around it. It seems to me that the main reason based on the site plan for the impact zone to be impacted so largely is because the size of the building of Building 2 and Building 3. And it looks like the impact zone, although you're saying it's not that much of an area, it's very close to the tree trunk. And I'm just wondering if you've looked at other scenarios with different sized buildings. I'm sure the impact is the only way you can get it based on this size of these buildings. But if the buildings were smaller, you would have less of an impact. I'm wondering what options you went to look at that.
I think that will segue into what
Okay,
Mr.
I'm
Gratzik.
happy to hold my question for that.
Sure,
If
sure.
he's going to address that.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Truslow, you have a question?
No, sir.
What about on my left? Okay. Thank you so very much for your testimony, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
My name's George Gratzik. I live at 2485 Royal Oak Drive on Johns Island. Lived there since 1990.
Speaking to the mic for me, if you would, please, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
You
Thank
want me to repeat all that?
If you didn't mind.
Okay.
I won't
George. Name's George Gratzik. I live at 2485 Royal Oak Drive, Johns Island. I've lived there since 1990. And I've seen all the changes that has everybody upset about on Johns Island. When I first moved out there, we didn't have stoplights. We had a little bridge that used to get stuck open, so that was the reason you couldn't get off the island, was because the bridge or summertime boat traffic was opening it up. But anyhow, I share everyone's concerns that wrote in about the traffic and congestion. I see it every day. It takes me twice as long to get anywhere as it did back then. But this project is actually an attempt to make a small improvement in that. About 6 years ago, I built a similar project right down Maybank Highway at 3436 Maybank. And I did some flex storage units in there, thinking that I would appeal to tradespeople, such as electricians, air conditioning, carpentry, cabinet makers, things like that. Well, lo and behold, that's not the kind of tenant I got. One of my tenants is Batting Cages of Charleston, okay? And they have flourished there. And they need twice as much space. And they want to go in that middle building right there, okay? They provide batting and pitching training grounds for the Johns Island High School baseball team. For the Barrier Island Little League uses it. The James Island High School baseball team comes over to Johns Island to use our facilities. It's overwhelmed right now, and we need twice as much. And the configuration of that building is based on what they need. I worked with both of these tenants that I'm going to tell you about to come up with these designs. Another building that I have in that same 3436 is Rhythmic Gymnastics. I'd never heard of it, so if you haven't ever heard of it, I understand. It's a young lady from Europe who came and lived on Johns Island, who teaches young girls rhythmic gymnastics, as well as self-defense. And later in the day, she teaches yoga to these young girls' mothers. She's also thriving there. We have a lot of young people start their families on Johns Island. I think one of the statistics, I said that there was a couple of thousand children under the age of, 10 or whatever on the island now that used to not be there. Black Flag Gym, was one of my original tenants out there, also needed a bigger space, so they had to move across the street, so I actually lost them. So there's a great need for things that appeal to youth, activities that's great for their development. Batting Cages of Charleston actually employs high school students during the daytime after school to work there at the facility. Another tenant I had there was actually the only one that does something that I originally designed for. It was Passion Air Conditioning. He used to have his office across in West Ashley, and he lived on Johns Island, so every day he had to get up, drive to West Ashley, get his service truck, come back to Kiowa, Seabrook, where he normally was doing all of his business. End of the day, drive back to West Ashley, get his car, come back. And he came to me in desperation that he was spending hours a day behind his windshield. That's all been solved now by using similar structures like that. He's not moving. But these facilities provide a place for residents to work, play, and get services without leaving the island. And that's a big plus because Johns Island, Wadmalaw, Kiowa, Seabrook, there are only 2 lanes leaving the island. 2 lanes. So what y'all saw today was what they are calling this Joe Jam, that's what the internet's calling it. We see every day. Let there be a wreck on one of those lanes, and the whole island shuts down. So I'm just giving people a place to work and play and do things with their kids without having to leave the island, okay? There was some question about the retention pond in one of the letters that was sent.
So
and
I'm going to have to stop you because
Okay.
that's okay.
Over 5 minutes, okay?
Yes, sir. So what I like to do, I'd like to see if we have any board member that may have a question for you.
Okay.
Mr. Neal, he's always ready on my right.
Yeah, I'll follow up with my question. I mean, and I'll be a little bit more detailed. I understand and appreciate the fact you've got tenants that want to come in and rent your properties, so that's great. And hiring the use and you're serving all. I'm totally supportive. But for BZA, we have critical lines here that we have to approve. And the one that is always a very high benchmark is number 6. The need for this variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. And by your testimony, at least I'm hearing, that you've made these buildings this size to accommodate your future tenants. These are by your own actions is why you're asking for this variance. And I'm trying to find out, is there another reason why you need this variance other than you need this building so big so you can have a happy tenant? So I really don't have problems with the 3 trees coming down. I have problems with the tree protection zone on that large tree that could probably die in 3 years. So I need to hear from you why you can't scale this building down or change this building placement.
The big problem is we have a 100-foot wide lot. And when you do all the setbacks, and I think the width of this building is 40 feet, you know?
42 feet.
And to get these, it's undevelopable for this purpose without that. I can tell you that much.
So if you cut the building and took the last third of the building off,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have the impact zone near the percentage that you're asking for. To me, it's very simple. Make a
Right,
smaller building.
And then I would not do it because I don't have a tenant that wants 5,000 square feet.
So you're saying, basically, it's because of your own actions you can't have
No,
this
it's
building.
because of their actions, not mine, okay?
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. We have a question for you from Mr. Williams.
Sir, I have a question about an opposition I see here. Somebody said that they oppose your zoning request and that they don't believe that you should be able to change the zoning just for your own profit. That's one of the opposition letters. What do you say to that?
Well, I think there's a tremendous amount of benefit for the community for this. I really do. I think, you know, saving the trees and all, to be honest with you, I own tree farms. I've planted 600,000 trees in my career. I know the importance of having trees, but I also know the importance of having activity for children and things for people to do without having to leave our island. So, you know, to answer your question is, if you want to know the true economics of this, it's really not that great. Y'all have managed to drive the cost of construction and permitting up so high that the return on these investments are not that great. And if I can't get the kind of tenant, I work this backwards. I find the tenant and I bill for them, and because otherwise it doesn't work. I mean, I just can't predict the future. I can't build something and think they'll come. I need to find somebody that has a need, and I try to meet that need. It's as simple as that.
As a follow-up,
And I risk a lot of capital on it, too.
so just for clarity, as a follow-up, we cannot consider economics on this board. That's one thing that I've learned as on the board, but we have to look at these criteria. So, for example, number 6 is that it can't be the effect of your actions. So, in other words, your actions is to build a building that's going to fit a certain tenant, whereas you could have a different tenant. So it's going to be your actions and your decision in this case. I don't see any hardship other than that you want the size building that you want, just like my fellow board members trying to say. So I just want to give you a little clarity on my question.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for you. I'm afraid that, you know, this is what has come to me, looking for a solution to a problem. And I'm not a professional developer. I'm a retired anesthesiologist. I do this on property that I acquired over the years. When I moved out to Johns Island, nobody wanted to live here. You couldn't sell a piece of property on Maybank Highway. In fact, you could lay down in the road out there and nobody would run over you. Nobody was out there. So I bought this, and when people come to me and they say, you know, could you do this for us? That's what I'm here right now. I'm really not doing this for my economic benefit. I mean, I'm retired. I've done well. I'm doing this because I've seen what the batting cages of Charleston has done, what the rhythmic gymnastics has done to our community, and I'm trying to help them grow. Okay? And this is the best place I've got for it.
Okay. Ms.
Okay.
Smalls?
I think I'm kind of concerned, like Mr. Neal and Mr. Williams. How long have you owned this stretch of property? Because it looks like it's a long, narrow stretch. And so, you know, often, I'm just wondering if you've owned it for 10 years or 20 years, you know what size of a lot that you had to deal with.
Let me tell
and
you
maybe
this.
build within the confines of that lot and not impact the trees and some of the other zoning requests that you have. So I'll give you a moment to
I
address
bought this
that.
property from a Mr. Patrick, who his family had lived there since the 1950s. Okay, the only people to ever live in the house. I own the lot next to it. I met with Mr. Patrick before, and I said, if you ever decide to sell, give me a call. So one day I get a call. This was probably about 10 or 15 years ago. And Mr. Patrick had been given a citation for a couple $100 because his hound dogs that he's had for decades were making so much noise that the people from St. John's Woods filed a complaint, and they were forcing him to move his dogs. Now, the dogs' kennels are still back there now. But that's the story behind this. He was forced out of there by the development behind his house. Otherwise, he had lived in the middle of Johns Island with his hound dogs howling all these years, and he had quite a crisis and a meltdown. It ended up in the paper. It was pretty ugly. So I bought it from him, adding to my 2 lots that I had then, and then I bought the one on the other side. So over the years, I acquired these 4 lots, which are 8 acres, okay? So I kid you not, once every week or 2, I get a call from a developer wanting to buy all 8 acres so they can slam it full of townhouses and things like that, which I understand they can do. And I say no. That I want to do something else with it that maybe it's more beneficial to the community than more houses. So it's your decision. I mean, if I get turned away and I don't get to do this, then I have lots of options. But I think they're going to make a lot of people disappointed too. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Jordan also has a question for
Okay.
you.
Well, I find that very admirable that you're doing it for the community and your tenants, but the fact of the matter is you do charge them rent, don't you?
I do. And
You're getting
charge-
something out of it.
I do charge. And you know what? I try to structure my rent to be a few dollars less than the beach company charges. Okay?
And also, when you made the comment about we're raising the construction fee, now you know that we're bound by laws we have to follow. It's not our personal decisions.
I understand that, but I'm just telling you the results are that it's a lot more expensive to build out there than it used to be. Okay?
Well, because you can't lay down the middle of the road no more, right?
Well, you can't lay down the rules. You really can't. In fact, we went one route. We were going to develop all 8 acres, and one of the things that caused us not to is we were going to be required to widen Maybank Highway to 3 lanes, which had a cost of like $1.8 million for just my 4
So
lots.
I guess some things don't change because the dogs are still barking, right?
No, the dogs are long gone. The guy moved to Monk's Corner 15 years ago.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I had been renting it out since then. Right now, the Floyd Law Firm occupies the house that he has right now.
Thank you.
So,
All right. Anyone else have a question? We all thank you so very much for your testimony tonight.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition to this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. So at this time, it is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff? All right, any discussion?
I have a procedural question. Motion to deny, are you looking for 2 separate motions for each case?
Yes.
Okay. If you have a motion for deny, the first one would be for the 3 trees. Do you need explaining criteria of which one it did not meet, or do you need to go through all 7?
You don't have to go through all 7.
You can just say
But
which
you
one
need
it
to
doesn't meet and why it doesn't
amply
meet.
satisfy the reasons for. If you have 1 or 2 reasons why it did not meet, then you need to state that
Okay.
for the record. And if anyone needs to approve, you need to do it accordingly. But I'd start with 7 to 8 first.
Right.
Please, whomever. Do we have any other questions or discussion? Okay. All right, if none, I'd like to get a motion to either approve or deny. Anybody want to help me with that?
I'll take a stab at 00728.
Yes, please.
And I make a motion that we deny this case based on the fact that, number 6, it is the result of the applicant's own actions. I think he has owned this swat of land for, it sounds like, at least 15-plus years, so he knows what buildable area he has to work with, and I think he is designing 3 buildings to suit tenants that he currently has, and probably could design something differently.
Second.
Okay. Just that one criteria?
Yes,
6.
6.
All right. You gonna work on the second one? We can vote, well, let me get this out of the way. So
May I have a follow-up on her, may I discuss her motion?
you can.
I'd just like to echo her comments that I believe it clearly does not meet number 6. I think the applicant's own actions, his statements about having a certain tenant are dictating the design of this property. Again, I think there's something else that could be there. Could it be better? Could it be worse? Well, we have to look at just this application, and I just feel that he's created his own monster here, unfortunately. I would like to see something develop there, but I just don't think this is the best action. I would also like to note that there were 17 or 18 letters in opposition to this. So this is one of the largest opposition campaigns that we've seen in a while, and I just think we have to take that into consideration as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so, Mr. Jordan,
So I know it's up to the applicant, but is this another situation like we've done before to where we might suggest or ask, would he be willing to put this on hold and go back to the board, or the staff, and work something out? Another proposal?
so right now, Mr. Jordan, we do have a motion that's on the floor. And I need to.
But I'm just asking, can that be done?
It can. It can. He would have to ask for that. So basically, if the applicant were to ask for a deferral, he would need to do that now, before we would actually render a verdict.
So is he?
All right. So right now, we have a motion on the floor. I don't have a second yet, or do I have?
No, I gave
Oh,
you
you got a second. I'm sorry. So we have a motion on the floor, and before I render the gavel, giving you an opportunity, if you want to defer this case, this will be the time to do it, sir, if that's what your pleasure. Or you can wait for the outcome of the vote. Very good. So we have so what I've heard is that he's going to wait for the outcome of the vote.
Wait. So after the outcome of the vote, he cannot defer.
He cannot defer.
Just want to clarify that.
Correct. So you understand that? You can't defer after we vote? Okay. Case is closed to the public, of course. Got a little ahead of myself. At this time, we have a motion on the floor to deny, and we have a second. At this time, all those in favor to deny case BZA 11-23-00278, please. 728. Thank you. Please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye. Aye. Uh-oh. Says aye. Okay, so that is, all those opposed? Thank you. It carries. Unfortunately, your application was not approved. This application was not approved. Okay? You'll be getting information from staff to let you know the next steps for that one. We also have 729. Do we have anyone on this board that would like to make a motion to either approve or deny? Mr. Neal?
I'll take that, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I move that we deny the request for variance for case BZA 1123000729, which is 3253 Maybank Highway, for the 8-foot perimeter landscape area easement. I feel that as with the first case, it does not meet the variance approval criteria number 6. The need for this variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions, and I feel that it is the applicant's own actions. I'd also like to reference the numerous letters in opposition to this as a prominent reason for other people seeing this as well. Looking for a second.
Okay, we have Mr. Williams as a second. Any discussion?
If I could echo just what we said a minute ago, clearly this is the applicant's own actions. The other criteria may be met, but this one I don't think is met.
Mr. Truesdale?
Well, I was going to say, my reasons to support the motion now are is that it has become moot by virtue of the first vote. So I think I would, I want to, I don't want
They
to
work hand
appear
in
that
hand.
they go hand in hand. I am concerned about what I would consider to be ad hominem attacks. Making a profit is something that's American in nature and is not something that should be disfavored.
Absolutely.
I understand the reasoning, and otherwise I've said all I can say, except I'm mindful of the Chinese adage about being careful what we ask for, because we may end up, the surrounding neighborhood may end up with something
Something totally different. and
totally
worse.
different than the gentleman's
Right.
offering. So, that's all I can say.
Since you brought that up, we do have to follow the ordinance and the requirements. And it's based on what testimony that we have in front of us and what's been presented. So this board made a deliberation based on the information that was presented to them.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion that's been properly moved and second. I'll carry it into the vote. All those in favor for denying case BZA 1123-00729, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand, please. Aye. It is unanimous. So unfortunately, sir, I do apologize. Sorry that your case failed, but you'll get information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process, okay? So very sorry. Thank you for coming tonight. You want to take this back with you, sir? Would you like to have that? Thank you for your time and your patience today. I think Ms. Working is doing our next case, which is BZA 11-23-730 and 31. Thank you.
The applicant, Eric Ladson of EarthSource Engineering, and the property owner, Jonathan Steinberg of 4212 Scott Street LLC, are requesting two variances for property located at 4212 Scott Street, which is TMS number 411-09-00001 in the north area of Charleston County. The 2.60 acre subject property and adjacent properties to the northeast and west are located in the industrial zoning district. Adjacent properties to the northeast and south are located in the city of North Charleston's jurisdiction. The first variance is a request to waive the required 8-foot perimeter landscape area along the eastern and western property boundaries and to waive the required 15-foot right-of-way landscape buffers along Veneer Avenue and Scott Street. The second variance is a request to allow an existing fence, a 6-foot high chain link fence with 18 to 24 inches of barbed wire on top, to remain within the required right-of-way landscape buffers along Veneer Avenue and Scott Street. This is the zoning ordinance requirements for the first case and second case. The aerial. This project is currently in the site plan review process. Per Charleston County records, the last business to receive a permit was called Charleston Lumber and Millwork LLC. They received a zoning permit to establish their business on the subject property in April 2007. However, no further businesses have received a zoning permit to establish since then. Pursuant to the ordinance, Chapter 3 Development Review Procedures, Article 3.7 Site Plan Review, Section 371 Applicability, and Section 372 Definitions. The entire site shall be brought into compliance with all applicable ordinance standards at the time of site plan review. So this is a zoomed in aerial and zoomed out. This is the posting for the first case. Staff conducted a site visit on the property on December 8th, 2023. A couple of photographs of the subject property and Scott Street and Veneer Street, or Avenue, sorry. And this is the posting sign for the second case. This is the site plan exhibit for the perimeter buffer variance, variance number 1, and the site plan for the fence. So the fence you could see there in red. So we did receive one letter of opposition. It came in this weekend for the fence. It's from the property owner immediately across parcel 079 on Alabama. And they were requesting a privacy fence along just this section here. And when I pull the zoning map back up, I could show you. Yeah, versus the chain link fence, just for that section. This is the plat. For the landscape buffer variance, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7, and that it meets 3 and 5. For the second variance, that's the fence. The fence variance, it meets 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7, or meets 3 and 5, and may meet 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7. Sorry. I can show you that real quick. Let's see. So yeah, along this thing. So the property owner lives across here. So it's just that small section there that the residents can see. Do you want to, Genesis, pass that out? Thank you. Okay. Back to this. Okay. The board may approve with conditions, or deny the cases based on the BZA's finding of fact unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the BZA decides to approve the application, staff recommends the following condition. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process. And we also suggested the same condition for the second case. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Working, still using the rookie card here as I go through these things. So you said this is industrial zoning. So educate me slightly on landscape buffers. I believe landscape buffers have different levels of landscaping based on industrial versus residential versus business, commercial, whatever the different levels of zoning are. So would it be fair to say that industrial landscaping buffers are probably at the low end of the spectrum?
Correct. Yeah, I believe 8 feet is our lowest buffer.
They're asking us to waive a very minimal level landscape buffer.
Correct.
And can you go back to one of those slides that shows where residential would be? Because it looks like one of the letter of opposition we got is
Maybe this one.
is residential
So the residents are all on this property line.
on that property line. So
Yeah,
at
'cause-
minimal, the veneer side would be residential, would be having some type of view corridor over there, correct?
Correct.
And I know we take each application separate, but have we seen other applications, or have there been other approvals within the last year for industrial areas where we just completely waive the landscape buffer, or is it mainly we reduce it down to a smaller size based on the actual
I
parcel?
know we've had some sidewalks waived. Can you think of any buffers?
No.
I can't think on the top of my head.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
so this is clearly they're asking to waive the buffer, and they're gonna, the use of this property is for containers and things like
A
that?
lay down yard, yeah.
Lay down yard, okay. All right, thank you for that education.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't. Anyone else? Mr. Williams?
Ms. Working, so what we're looking at right here, is this a historical development build, like 11, 16, 17, 19, 22, what is this now? Is that what you're showing us?
Oh, you're talking about the photographs?
Yeah.
These were photographs provided by the applicant. They took
Okay,
those
so
photographs,
my question
or
is.
provided them on that site.
Okay, thanks. My question is, are they able to build that privacy fence like the residents request? Does that fit in within the regulations?
If you make a condition for that, like say you wanted to allow some of the barbed wire to stay, and
Right.
I mean, they could even technically probably keep the barbed wire and then put the privacy fence.
Right.
So they have both. If that makes sense.
But normally, would they have is it like without the condition or anything? would they be able to put the privacy fence there?
Well, they wouldn't be required to. So they can have a chain link barbed wire fence, correct, Sally? It's just because it's in the actual buffer.
It's in the buffer area?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And it's in an industrial area.
That's
so.
the buffer area? Yeah, okay.
What's the name really called?
That's by the Wayland, Dorchester
That's what I
Wayland.
thought.
Yeah, that's the Wayland on the right. So my follow-up question is, where could they put the chain link fence if it was not in the buffer area, if it were not to be in that buffer area?
So with it, outside of it,
Yeah, 8
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah, they would have to move it. It's existing
Move
there,
it.
so they would have to move it.
they'd have to move it inward.
Inward a
towards
little
them,
bit.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Turn it back.
So that could be an option.
Turn it maximize the lay down.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions of staff? Good questions, good questions. Thank you, Ms. Workin. Is the applicant present? Very good. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today to the board. I appreciate it very much. My name is Greg Habib. I'm here representing the owners of the property, Jonathan Steinberg and his corporation. Our engineer, unfortunately, about 20 minutes ago, was still stuck on the Ravenel Bridge. So our engineer is not here. I don't think we'll have engineering questions so much as I think that we can probably go ahead with this. My address for our company is 2700 Sproul Avenue.
So let me lay down some little ground rules here. I'm going to give you a little bit more time because you have two cases. Okay? So if we could, let's start to address 729 first. 30 first, and then you can go to 31. You with me?
No, not really.
That's all right.
I got to find 30.
730, yes.
Third on the agenda.
Which one? I left that over there. I think I've thought of them all as the same thing. Or both of them
they
as
are,
the
but
same
you-
thing,
you-
know what
okay.
I mean? So I got to remember which speaks to which.
You have two requests.
Yes. Okay.
And I have the
the
timer set to
fence.
10
Okay.
minutes, so.
Yeah. That's I had to
Thank
think-
you,
Sorry.
Ms.
So
Work.
30 is the perimeter landscape, and the other is the fence.
Yes,
So really,
sir.
they sort of go in. The perimeter.
They work hand in
landscape is
hand,
really
I
the
understand,
issue.
but
correct. So if you don't mind, and I don't know how much. What I have 5 minutes? Is that correct?
Yes.
There's 10 minutes,
Okay.
because it's two cases.
I'd go forever.
Okay, well, I have a timer.
Thank you. Our company bought this property in September of 2021. I think the history here is very important pursuant to the issues at hand, the qualifiers that we have to meet in order to gain approval here. We purchased the property in September of 2021. Currently, at that time, in September of 21, the occupant of the property was AAA Metals. It had operated as a scrapyard for I don't know how many years, certainly all the way back to the early 2010, 2011, maybe even before that. I do not recall exactly. But it has operated in that case for quite some time. Our company purchased the property. That company and its inhabitants there had been an eyesore and a nuisance to the neighborhood around it. Our company purchased that property. We spent considerable amounts of money cleaning the property, demoing the dilapidated building that was on the property, and rebuilding the fence that was on the property to something that was new and actually makes some sense. We did so, obviously, in an effort to reuse the property in a different commercial or industrial application. And when we went to do that is when we found out some of the issues that we have here today and why we are here. The use of this property is certainly allowed under its current zoning. It is certainly appropriate under its current zoning. The only issue at hand is the amount of buffer and the type and area of the fence, which again is part of it. But the issue at hand that I believe needs to be answered outside of any of the engineering, because I don't know that that's terribly important here, is the item relative to item 6, which is the cause of why we're here. The interpretation of having not been in business or a business not having been there for 36 months is what we have used, what was used to make our determination in this particular case. As you see by the response from the planning department here at Charleston County, every one of them either meet or may meet They find that there's obviously value and relevance to our argument in each and every case. The most pertinent one is that item 6, the 36 months. It is clear, and I believe there's someone here that will speak to that as well, but I think people on the board even know, the idea that a business or that had not been in use since 2007 is not at all accurate. In fact, when I questioned the idea that there had not been a business there, I was told, and there had not been a licensed business there, and I have a stack of citations to show that there has not been a licensed business there, to which I said, what'd they get a citation for? For operating a business without a license. And I would point out that the county, through a few different avenues, has the ability, had they chosen, to close that operation down. There are ways to do that. So the idea that it had not been in use, again, is not, in our estimation, really accurate at all. It had clearly been in use. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gone through the endeavor of buying it, cleaning it up, tearing down a building, and frankly being thanked by many of the residents in and around there. So I think we very clearly meet number 6, in addition to the others, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have on that as we move forward. I will point out a couple of things relative to the one opposition that you received, which was not an opposition to the project, but rather an opposition to the fence. And not even an opposition to the position of the fence, but rather it was an opposition of what the fence was made of, as I recall by her reading. A couple of things. A, across the street from where that fence is, there are no homes. So I'm not sure, at least as far as we can tell, so I'm not sure how really important that is. However, we would certainly be willing, although privacy fence, as Mr. Williams asked, may not be an appropriate fence for an industrial use, we certainly have the capacity to build an opaque fence, to put something up there that can't be seen through. We've certainly done that at other locations that our company operates. So we can do things to provide screening and the like in that way. I also want to point out again, it's interesting, the person who was just speaking before you, we all talk about traffic. And I want to speak to the need for this project. All of us living in the Tri-County area have done nothing probably but complain about traffic. Anybody that's lived here for any period of time, myself since 1982, have complained about what has become of our little hamlet and the traffic that we live with. But when you live in a state and in an area whose primary goal, and I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm saying the primary goal of our governor and of the Department of Commerce is economic development. They have expanded the port so that it can handle thousands of more containers than it could several years ago. The proximity of these yards, which, by the way, was our proposed use for this property, the proximity of these yards is terribly important to mitigating traffic and based as a result of the impact of our economic growth. Where do these businesses go? Where are they approximated so that they have the least amount of impact on our traffic? This particular lot, trucks would not drive by any home to get in and out of. It is up 50 yards, I think, from Dorchester Road. It is about a half a mile. How far are you from the interstate? From 26. Yeah. About a half a mile from I-26. So it's in close proximity to the port, it's in close proximity to the interstate, so the idea of where these things go when you have a port that's now continuing to expand, this is the perfect application of this property, and it's necessary. The buffers are necessary, again, to be able to continue that. Again, I go back. The reason why we're eligible for this approval today is because this has not been left dormant for over 3 years. It has very much been a business and an active business, and the people within Charleston County are quite aware of that. Jonathan, did you want to speak? Jonathan is he's the owner of the company. I'm now done talking unless you have questions.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm going to start right here to my left. We'll get to you, sir. We're going to start with Mr. Jordan and find out what his question is for you.
So when you rebuilt the fence, what kind of fence did you rebuild?
It was chain link, and it was falling apart and not obviously providing any security at all. So we went back in and again rebuilt a new chain link fence.
Did you put barbed wire on it?
I'm sorry?
Did you put barbed wire on it?
Yes, there is barbed wire on it.
Why?
Again, that property had, all right, I can go back and give you a little bit of history of why we've become very secure in our properties. And I apologize for taking the time. It's for nothing more than to provide security.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Well, you have a right to desire security, but I live close to that area. And I personally resent your barbed wire. Because it's true what that person wrote. They are trying to bring that neighborhood back. It may not look like it, but there have been efforts made. And you know, there's something to be said about being a good neighbor. And some people may not think that's a good neighborhood, but it is. It's low income, primarily minority, but you know what? They're just as important as Kilwa, as far as I'm concerned. They're just as important as Wild Dunes. And you know, I would hope that you would think about that. I mean, do you have barbed wire on any fences in your neighborhood? And
Mr.
I'm
Jordan,
not trying to make it
I
personal.
hope I have not given the impression that
Absolutely
we have
not. I'm
anything
not
about
upset
that
with you.
neighborhood. The
My
fact of the
purpose of
matter
saying
is-
this is for you to please think that you're in a neighborhood of people. And any way you can do to make it a good neighbor, I hope you'll do it.
I can appreciate that very much. Again, this property is currently zoned industrial. It is surrounded by property that it's currently zoned industrial. We, again, appreciate that we're in a neighborhood or across from one.
Close to it.
And close to one. Again, so I hope I did not give the impression that
Not
that's
at all.
not okay.
Don't,
because-
and
yeah.
I'm not trying to single you out.
Yes, sir,
But
I understand.
But
I think as a company, again, what we need is on the inside of that fence, right? So where the fence currently is and the buffers that are currently in place, that's what we need. There will be no parking on the outside of that fence, all right? And for the application of which we're speaking. So certainly I think we can do things and would be willing to do things that would make that property a little bit more palatable.
that's all I'm asking. They're
Yes, sir.
people too, and they're
I
good
agree.
people.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
I need a clarification from Ms. Working's team before I ask this, if possible. Is the skipping ahead to the barbed wire top, is that what is one of the non-compliance type issues? I mean, barbed wire is not allowed as a fence
Well,
versus
chain
privacy
link,
fence?
the height of the chain link and the barbed wire.
Be 6 feet?
In the buffer, you're only allowed up to 4-foot fence, and it cannot be wire, chain link, barbed wire.
Okay,
All
so-
of so the height, the material,
And that's only,
in the buffer,
and that's
all
even
of
for
that is prohibited.
industrial, we don't allow, so they
That's
have.
across all,
Okay, so
yeah.
because of this use in the industrial zoning and stuff like that, he's asked for that. Oh, wait.
Yeah,
So
for
I can
anything
read it from
non-single.
you.
that's fine. I didn't need understanding. Again, I'm still the rookie here.
No,
All right.
I'd like to hear her read it, though.
Oh, okay, well, go ahead,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Any proposed fencing that will be constructed within a right-of-way buffer shall not exceed 4 feet in height. Chain link, wire, and barbed wire fencing are prohibited within the right-of-way buffer. So we're not saying it's prohibited, but since it's in the buffer.
Right away.
Right, the right-of-way buffer.
I got you.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, finish
Follow
it.
up. Okay, so my question is, first part, the fencing, has this already been built and you're trying to bring it into compliance? Is that where, one of the issues we're here?
So-
I heard you mention that you had built the fence when you bought the property, you fixed the fence, things like that. Explain to me, is everything already intact and you're coming in for an after-the-fact issue?
Well, I think that therein lies the question. So yes, we replaced the fence that was currently there, that was dilapidated and falling apart, with a new fence.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. Can you go to your site plan? Can you click to the site plan and show me, go back to the one with the blue line on it?
Okay, that's the red line is the fence.
Oh, okay, so the red line, so that fence is currently in place in the buffer.
Correct, and
And
has
it's-
been there since 2000 and whatever.
Okay, so it's 6 foot barbed wire.
That is correct.
Okay, so this isn't something you would go out and build, you're trying to get a variance for it because it's already in place.
That is correct. Again,
Okay.
we go back to the question of.
That's fine. I'm just trying to understand where we are. So my second part of my question is, you had mentioned your willingness to change something on Veneer Avenue, whether there's residential over there or not. I'm not familiar with this area. what other options are there that you would be willing to do to undertake to block residential's views of containers and things like that, that would be nice for the residing area?
That's the way it used to be on city council.
If you don't mind, I'd like.
I'll let him
to
answer
speak to that.
when he comes for his section, when he's
We
speaking.
have to
I'll
wait.
hold that question.
That's fine.
I'll hold that question for when he speaks.
I'll let the owner speak to that. But yes, there are things that Mr. Steinberg is certainly willing to do.
Okay, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We had a question on this side?
He did.
Mr. Williams?
Sir, so to come into compliance, you'd basically would need to not have a chain link fence, not have a barbed wire on there, and have it 4 foot or less, right? That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. Again, theoretically, again, I still would like, I want to reiterate that what we are appealing is, yes, the compliance of the fence based on the buffer. The buffer itself is what we are asking to be mitigated here, is that the application of the new zone is because of the idea that the property had been vacant for over 3 years. Had a determination been that the property had not been vacant for 3 years, we would not be here today and have these questions. So yes, to answer your question, the height and all of those things are part of it, but our problem again is, yes, we need the height of the fence for the security of the operation that we want to put in there, and we need the room of where the buffer is.
So then my other question is, and this may be a question for staff, to not be in that right-of-way buffer, not have the fence in that right-of-way buffer, could you take that fence further back
Inward.
into your yard?
Into the yard, correct.
How far back would you need to take it into your yard, the fence?
It'd be 15, right?
15 feet.
Yeah, because it's 15 off the right-of-way.
15 feet, okay.
Yeah.
Take it
It was-
15
it
feet
was-
back, and you
Yeah,
still,
yes, it was
And your
15 feet off the right-of-way, not, yeah, that's it. So it's 15 feet back.
right,
correct.
and just for clarity, there is a neighborhood right there on the right, there are residents right there to the right.
No, I understand. I understand.
Thank you.
Anybody else on that side? Okay. Thank you so very much for your testimony,
you.
sir. Okay. Did you?
The applicant, Eric Ladson, actually just showed up, but I'm Jonathan Steinberg. I just had a couple things to say.
Please state your name and address, please.
Jonathan Steinberg, 751 Navigators Run in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. It seems this is a tough case for us. It really is, because it does seem a little bit that there's a technicality. The technicality is I went there to evict a tenant who was conducting commerce, buying and selling scrap metal. There were people everywhere. There was trash everywhere. There were people in trash everywhere. I went there to a very, very hostile environment, and I ended up going to get this tenant evicted. Meanwhile, we cleaned up the property. We replaced the fence. We happened to put it in the exact same place that it was. We did have barbed wire. There was no real thought process to affect the community. It was a scrap yard there. There was, and someone else will speak, there was some crime related to that scrap yard, and we just decided to put a fence with barbed wire similar to the other properties. By no means was it any disrespect to anybody. It was kind of looking around, and that was commonplace for the properties in line. So, I did get that tenant evicted, and now it seems like, gotcha, we have to comply with a certain set of rules as if there was the last 15 or 16 years didn't exist. So it is a little complicated when it comes to that. That being said, we did everything we could to improve the property. It's not the property that we talked about on Maybank Highway. It's 2.6, 2.7 acres. We do want, I think I heard you mention a laydown yard. That is a possibility. There'd be very little traffic. There'd be very little commotion on that street. So that's really all we're talking about. I mean, Eric could answer any technical engineering questions. I just, Greg, tried to appeal. I mean, it just seems hard to lose on this weird issue about vacancy and then have to move a fence back that's brand new to comply, where it really, again, and not to speak from an engineer, I can't imagine that would really matter. I mean, it's really, really a small area on a side street that, again, we're only in this category based on this, was there a business license that's valid, and whether we should have known. It's just difficult, so.
So, you know, your case is no different than a lot of cases that we've seen here that have not renewed their business license, because that's the crux of the issue here. That business license was not renewed timely, and that's how you got caught in this
But it,
situation.
Agreed.
I know.
Completely unrelated to us. It's not like the landlord. There was a landlord there that we purchased the property from. We went through an entire due diligence in purchasing that property. This was never red flagged. So it does seem, I mean, I think if you guys were in my position, it seems a little unfair. But again, so
Yeah.
that's,
You're not the only one.
But I understand.
You're not the only one, and it has happened before, and we've seen it before. So I just wanted
No,
to give you a little level.
I didn't say that we were being targeted or
No,
anything.
no.
I'm just saying it does, when you look at the totality, it seems like it puts us in another category that is somewhat unfair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the question I still had out there was about what options could you help on the veneer side, I believe that's the name of the street. But also, correct me, I want to make a statement. It doesn't look like you're trying to maximize or gain any of the buffer area to maximize your laydown yard. That you're really just here because of the current condition and status of the fence. So you're not growing your area. You're not going into the buffer to add an extra building, to add extra laydown, to add extra parking. This is because of the fence is already there, and you don't want to have to tear it down and build it back into buffer and build it outside of the buffer. Is that correct?
I mean, you stated that perfectly.
Okay.
Well,
So that issue is.
we don't want to spend
Right, I understand.
tens of thousands of dollars to move a fence back.
So that helps
won't
me meet,
impact
that
us.
helps me meet a lot of the criteria that we have here. This is not of your own making, all the criteria that we have. So I'm working my way through all that. So my question is more towards the surrounding area. I believe it's condition 2 or 5, maybe. I'll have to put my glasses on here in a second. But how can you improve the opposition letter that it said about the view corridor? What can you do to make that area so that the residential doesn't feel impacted?
Okay, Eric, can you come up for a second?
Oh, we got another speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We had to finish with you
You
first.
said you had
How
to
about
answer.
this?
Just answer it real easily for me.
Again, I think we could beautify that area over by Veneer. If you wanted us to plant some trees, some shrubbery, we could do. I mean, again, I'm not an expert on this, but I'd be happy to discuss whatever you think would make sense over there.
Okay, so let me make a statement. It's real easy, if I may follow up, Mr. Chair. So you'd be willing to submit a landscape plan prior to any installation
Continue.
to this permit being approved?
If that's a condition that you want to place on it.
So you'd be fine with submitting a landscape plan to staff?
The only thing I mentioned is that there was a couple comments. I think you had mentioned potentially screening. We could make that fence on the Veneer side more opaque. I'd have to, we'd have to look back at that. Would that?
Would you be willing to agree to that type of condition?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Okay.
Mr. Jordan?
I just want to say thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Brooks.
Clarify though, just there's existing pavement that runs up to the right of way, so I'm not sure exactly, they would have to remove the pavement?
Right.
Or, yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
if that
gonna be
was the
very
intent of that, I
open-ended.
just wanted to make sure that was clear, that that would be expected.
I'm sure I'll need help in a few minutes.
Any other, Ms. Smalls? Okay. Thank you so very much for your
All right,
testimony.
thank you, guys.
You did a good job there. You did a good job. Okay, did the engineer come in? We want to hear from him, right? Or do you want to?
I don't need it.
You also have to be sworn in if you want to step to that mic and present testimony. I do. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve this application, sir.
My name is Eric Latson. I work with Source Engineering. That is 962 Houston Rockcut Boulevard in Mount Pleasant. I'm here representing Jonathan Steinberg. I was mainly just here to answer any type of technical questions that you may have had. But I mean, otherwise, my support for Jonathan would be to say that the existing site as it was in a much worse condition before he came along. He came to make as much improvements as he could with the previous tenants being there and all the existing material that he removed. He certainly, if you see the exhibits, Exhibit 2, you can see the time span from 2007 to 2022. He already put in the effort to clear that area out and make it already more pleasant to look at than it was before. And as he just previously indicated, he's willing to make more of an effort under the conditions that you're proposing. I think Jonathan is just trying to keep the site as was with just an additional trailer on site. He's not proposing any type of disturbances, no stormwater improvements. He's not trying to touch the buffer in the rear, which I think is the more prevalent buffer since there's a school behind him. There's all existing vegetation there. He's not intending on touching any of that. I think this is a minimal disturbance that should be able to be accommodated.
Okay. And thank you so very much. Let's see if anyone have a question for you, okay?
Thank you.
To my left, any questions? Oh, if you don't mind coming back just for a moment. That's okay. Anyone to my right, questions? Well, I guess you were just on. Oh, no, I take that back.
Quick
Mr.
question.
Williams?
Yes, sir. Do you know when the fence was built? When the fence was rebuilt? I mean,
22, about September 22, the new fence.
okay, thank you.
Thank you so very much for your testimony tonight, sir.
Okay.
And I'm sorry you got caught up in our traffic trying to get here.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank you.
very much. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Yes, sir. You've been waiting there patiently, too.
I'm John Votaw, 4230 Scott Street, Southeastern Plastics Recovery. I'm a recycler, so I know the Charleston Steel folks for many, many years. Like I said, I've been there since 1998, so I know where all the bodies are buried. So the property in question has been a number of scrap metal yards, be it legal or illegal. The last one in particular, Berkeley Scrap Metal, was basically just a continuing criminal enterprise. So I've endured 50 burglaries in 25 years on the property. It got so bad that I would simply go over there, walk inside, get my property back, and walk back to. They would steal all the binders off my trucks. They would come and peel the metal off the side of the building, come inside my building, to the point where I have keyed locks. We don't have a handle lock. You have to have a key to get in and out of my property, because once they would get in, they would have to go out the same way they got in. So many years ago, and I've only caught 2 people out of the 50, but I always knew where my material was going because we had cameras. We had a guy that got electrocuted because he tried to cut through a hot fence. So after one of the gentlemen that we caught red-handed, I was called into Al Cannon's office. He's the one that told us we had to put Constantine wire up there. He said, you need an 8-foot commercial fence with Constantine wire. That's the only way you're going to keep these guys out. That's direct from Al Cannon. So we mean no disrespect to the neighborhood. Again, I've been there 25 years. As far as the fence is exactly where it was 25 years ago. It's been run over a number of times because when you come, the street is only wide enough to accommodate barely 2 tractor trailers passing. So we have, like I have roll-offs and big trucks. So if a truck's coming the other way, one guy has to stop and let the other guy pull it off into the driveway. The reason that when you make that hook from Veneer onto Scott Street, you have to go wide or you're going to take out a telephone pole. So the landscape thing is really not going to work because people are going to keep driving over it if you're trying to make that left turn from Veneer onto Scott. We endured a terrible vagrant problem because there were scrap metal yards there, so they have to feed their habit, so to speak, and they do that by theft. And they would actually steal from the scrap metal yard and take it back and resell it to the scrap metal yard. So the fence had been breached so many times, and we were very thankful when Jonathan came in there and they put up a proper fence. So all that being said, I'm in complete support. I'm glad to have them as neighbors. It's a lot better than we've had. I'd be very happy if we could get the burned out building that's been there for a decade or so demolished. But our side of the street is zoned heavy industrial. It's three-phase power, heavy industrial. The other side of Scott Street is actually in the city of North Charleston. So it's kind of a weird situation there. So you have to go through the city of North Charleston to get the building torn down, and that's just something I haven't had enough time to go after. But we've tried to clean up the area. We donated money to the Brentwood School for their after school, their youth programs. I mean, we've been there forever. And I completely support anything that they're trying to do. They're a good company. Not for these guys, there would be no non-ferrous metal license. It was those guys that set all that in play years ago.
Well, let me see if we have any other board members that have a question for you. I'm looking to my right and my left. They're all shaking head. Thank you so very much for your testimony tonight. All right. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any other questions of staff?
I do. How would it be best if I was to propose a condition, and it looks like the condition would hit both of the cases 3 and 4 on our agenda. Staff recommendations has at the end, it says prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process. I'd like to modify that to site plan review process, but with an emphasis on screening of Veneer Street to reduce the view of containers for any residences. Is that enough direction for staff for that type of condition, or does it need to be a little bit more?
Ms. Brooks?
If you have something in mind of like.
I don't.
So something that you would like to see
I'm trying to
there?
accommodate, I don't know the site, I'm trying to accommodate the opposition that they clearly sent us a letter and pictures, and it looked like a view corridor that they didn't want to see. The applicant is receptive to the idea of some type of site plan review condition, so I'm not an architect and not an engineer. I'm just trying to put something in there to give if the board were to approve it, some type of direction.
I think the opaque
fencing.
adding that screening on the chain link part.
Yeah, they have several different ways in which they could screen it using that chain link fence. You could use, I won't say tarps, but it's a fabric type.
Yeah, they have
things.
opaque, I looked it up, opaque fence screens, I think is what it's called.
Correct.
Include the opaque screen on the Veneer Street would be suffice?
Yes. And, just give staff their discretion.
Leeway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To do what's necessary on that,
Right.
to meet that requirement.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Truslow.
I was just going to say, I wouldn't impose on the applicant an undefined burden that would be difficult to interpret or to force compliance. I would leave it as it is.
Okay. Any more discussion? Any other questions of staff? Mr. Williams?
I guess a question to staff would be from my own understanding, the reasoning, so this is a right-of-way buffer, right? And right-of-way buffer is, the rules for this is for what reasoning? Is it because there's a right-of-way where cars are coming in or people are coming into a street or what?
Right, based on the occupancy of the property, coming up to a current compliance for the buffers would be to the right-of-way buffer standard, anything from a right-of-way, there's a requirement for a 15-foot landscape area adjacent to the right-of-way, and there a limitation on the type of fencing that you can put within that area. So,
And those are for reasons of human beings going down that right of way, going to an area, neighborhood, just turning, riding a bike or whatever, right?
yeah, so the buffer is meant to provide, some it's aesthetics and screening of any like vehicular use or other commercial use or industrial use of the property to provide that screening, but also an aesthetic like beautification type thing. It does, landscaping stuff does provide other natural
It's still industrial.
things, but yeah.
Buffer for it, yeah.
But in this case, that would be like the most prevalent meaning for the right-of-way buffer.
Okay, thank you.
And Josh actually did the site visit, so he agreed with Sally, like, it's all concrete. So we would want to know, are you guys okay with just the opaque screen fence, or are you wanting them to dig up some concrete and add some plantings? So I think we would need more direction on that part.
Yeah, and that's why they asked for the buffer reduction because of the existing concrete there. So that's the other part of this, not just the fence, the buffer reduction, so that they would not have to remove that.
Right.
Was my understanding.
I get it.
Thank you.
Any more? Thank you, staff. Thank you. Any more general discussion? Mr. Truslow, you smiling?
No, sir, I'm fine.
Okay.
I just trust the good faith of the applicant to do what was right
agree.
under these circumstances. I think we've got on it's a slippery slope when we try to literally appease everyone. We have to have a standard that that the public can rely on, and they can trust us, and we can trust them. So,
Very well said.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. At this time, board members, I need a motion to approve or deny.
Want to go? You want me to? All right, I'll take the first stab at it. I move. You want these separate?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, in case BZA 11-23-00730, I move for approval of the variance request for the zoning variances for this subject property. I feel that it meets condition number 1. There are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. We've heard testimony after testimony tonight that this is a very unique piece of property. And they have done a lot to enhance this property. Condition 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. There's a hodgepodge of property. There's residential out there. This is obviously an industrial zoning, which is a very difficult piece of property to manage, but I believe that that meets this condition. Because of the number 3 condition, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to the particular piece of the property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of this property. The main issue they have here is not of their own making, which will be number 6, but the fence is already there. Pulling the fence back so that it's not in the 15 area buffer zone, you're still going to have a fence of barbed wire there. And I just don't see bringing this property into total compliance and putting that undue burden on them will solve anything. Condition number 4, the authorization of a variance will not be substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. It's industrial property. This doesn't really have anything to do other than the zoning, the buffer that we're talking about here, and the chain link fence, the buffer, excuse me, for case 3. Number 5, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district to extend physically a non-conforming use of land or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. The fact that property may be utilized more profitably if a zoning variance is granted shall not be considered grounds for granting a zoning variance. They're bringing this property into compliance. That's clearly what this condition is trying to adhere to, and they're trying to do that. So I think they're making improvements to the property. They're bringing it into compliance. It wasn't even having business licenses. So that's a clear approval of that zoning criteria. Number 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. I firmly believe that's exactly what we have here. They're trying to clean up a mess, and granting this variance will allow them to do it in a way that's the most feasible. Number 7, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of this ordinance. I don't see that there's any problem with that whatsoever. So I would make one change in adding a condition to this property, to this approval, that would take staff comments that were suggested prior to zoning permit approval. The applicant shall complete the site plan review process, and I will add a note that they would comply with adding an opaque screening section on the veneer side of the road on the fence. So I would not be adding any type of criteria that would damage the concrete. I mean, that would make them remove the concrete. But I would ask them to screen on that veneer street side. And that would be my motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. It's properly moved in second. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Truslow?
I would not impose a burden on the applicant to place opaque screening there. I think they demonstrated good faith. I think they would continue to do so. I think we go down a very slippery slope when we start to decide whether we're going to have different standards for different people. We just have to try to treat people the same way, feed people out of the same spoon of justice, so to speak. So I'm going to be in favor of the motion, but I'm worried about imposing extra standards,
Conditions?
conditions on this applicant.
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Mr. Williams?
Well, just for clarification, opaque screen fence is what you're asking on the veneer side, right? Yeah, opaque.
They just go along this way.
Right, because the applicant agreed to that as well.
Yeah, and my follow-up, and I appreciate Mr. Truslow's comments, and I agree. I don't want to set different standards. But what I try to get in the conversation back and forth in the testimony is when the applicant agrees to a condition already, that they're fine with doing something. I like to have it on the record so that they can't change their minds afterwards, because this is something that we're addressing to help us meet our criteria for our variances. I think it's fine to add that condition as a reason, especially when the applicant themselves agree to it. So that's the only reason I included in my motion.
It may be a benefit also for them, security-wise, if they can't see it, what's going on in that neighborhood or in that lot. You know, the neighborhood can't see what's going on in there, you know, every day. Just looking at it may give them an extra added security, a level of security. That's just my thoughts. All right, any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay, so let's bring it to a vote. All those in favor for approving this, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Do you want to carry forward with 31?
Yeah, I'm happy to if the panel wants to, or if the panel wants to go.
You on a roll, keep moving.
All right, so I will, I move that I move for a motion for approval for case BZA 112300731, which will also be at 4212 Scott, the variance to request to allow existing fence. I move that I make a motion to approve this, and I set forth in the approval of the criteria for zoning variances. Criteria number 1, there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. I've stated clearly on record tonight that this is a very unique piece of property, and that the applicant has worked very hard to enhance this property, and this will help. Criteria number 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Again, this is an industrial zoning parcel, so this has unique regulations and restrictions, and this will creating this variance will help it obtain that. Criteria number 3, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Again, in this industrial setting, changing the buffer lines and the height requirements could have detrimental effects on this property. So I believe it meets criteria number 3. Criteria number 4, the authorization of a variance will not be substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I have added a condition of approval to enhance the area on Veneer Street, so I believe it meets this criteria with this condition. Criteria number 5, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance that the effect of which would be allow the establishment of use or not otherwise permitted in the zoning district to extend physically a non-conforming use of land. This is exactly what this applicant is trying to do. They're trying to bring this up into conformance, and by doing that, it'll meet all of the conditions for the property. Number 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. Clearly, we have numerous statements on record tonight that they have not done anything to cause this by their own actions. They are trying to enhance this property. So it meets number 6. Number 7, the granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purpose of this ordinance. Again, they're trying to bring this property into compliance, so I believe it meets this. I will also add the same condition as the prior one that I'd just like to modify staff's recommendation, number 1, where it says prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete a site plan review process by adding a opaque screen accommodation on the Veneer Street side where they will not have to disrupt the current concrete footings. And that is my motion.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion that's been properly moved and second. Any discussion? Questions? Any questions? Nope. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Very good. Congratulations. Both of your applications have been approved. Within the next 10 days, you will be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. Thank you so very much for your time. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we've been at it for, I think, 2 hours now. If you would indulge, we will take a 10-minute recess, and we'll reconvene at that moment. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Yep. So at this time, we'd like to reconvene, and we will start off with cases. BZA 1123, 00733, and 734.
Correct.
And that will be done by Ms. Working.
Okay. The applicant and property owner Trip Moy of GBSC FDN LLC, represented by Bob Elmar of Revere, sorry. I'm tired. Are requesting 2 variances for a proposed soccer field complex, and that's phase 2, for property located at 5116 Highway 17 North, and that's TMS number 62500000095 in the east area of Charleston County. The 3.6 acre subject property is located in the Agricultural Preservation AG10 zoning district. The subject parcel, which is 625000095, was subdivided in September 2023 from the parent tract parcel, which was 625000003. That one is also located in the AG10 zoning district. Surrounding properties to the northwest and south are located in the town of Allendale's jurisdiction. The property to the west on the corner of Highway 17 North and Gearns Bridge Road is located in the Highway 17 North Overlay Zoning District, Seawee Road Business Service Node. And that's the location of the approved approximately 12-acre Phase 1 soccer field complex at 5050 Highway 17 North. Again, 62900000206. The BZA approved 2 variance requests on March 17, 2023 for the Phase 1 soccer field complex. So the first case tonight for the Phase 2 is a request to remove 1 grand tree and to encroach more than 25% of the protected area of 2 grand trees. More specifically, the applicant is requesting to remove a 27-inch diameter breast height DBH grand red oak tree, encroach 27 inches, a live oak tree, and that's a 43% encroachment. Encroach a 50-inch live oak tree, and that's a 27% encroachment. The second variance is a request to reduce the required 75-foot right-of-way landscape buffer along Highway 17 North by 25 feet to 50 feet. And these are the zoning ordinance requirements for those 2 cases. This is the 300-foot radius map and the aerial. And currently, the Phase 2 project is in the site plan review process. This is the posting for the first case. We conducted the site visit on December 8th, 2023. And these are the tree pictures for the first case. This is the 27-inch red oak they would like to remove, and then encroachment on the 27-inch live oak, and encroach on the 50-inch live oak tree more than 25%. A couple of photos of the subject property in Highway 17 North and the posting for the second case. This is the existing conditions plan and demolition plan, the site plan and grading plan, and the site plan for Phase 2, and plat. And this is that plat that was recorded this September. We received 7 letters of support in your supplemental packet and 1 letter of opposition also in your supplemental packet. We did receive 2 emails from a husband and wife like at 4:15 today, but I just can't, yeah. But anyways, they are also opposed and unfortunately did not meet the cutoff to print those for y'all. So for variance number 1, the grand tree variance, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and that it meets 5. Variance 2 is the landscape buffer, and it meets, we said it may meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and it meets 5. And again, with the trees, you can consider them separately for approval conditions, or denial. The board may approve approval conditions or deny the cases based on the BZA's findings of fact unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following conditions recommended by staff. And one is prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process. 2, the applicant shall mitigate the removal of 27-inch DBH grand red oak tree by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2.5 inches in caliper equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund, and that's section 926 of the zoning ordinance. Or C, a combination of both A and B. The allotted mitigation shall be in place prior to removal. 3, if any of the grand trees requested for removal, and that's the 27-inch live oak and 50-inch live oak, die within 3 years of the installation of the completion of the project, the applicant shall mitigate this tree or trees by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2.5 inches in caliper equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund, as described in section 926 of the ordinance, or C, a combination of both A and B. The allotted mitigation shall be in place prior to its removal. And 4, tree barricades constructed of chain link fencing shall be installed around all protected trees within 40 feet of disturbance prior to any construction pursuant to section 924 of the ordinance. 5, the applicant shall retain a certified arborist to monitor and treat all grand trees on site through the duration of construction. The applicant shall provide a copy of the treatment plan to zoning staff for review and approval prior to zoning permit, prior to site plan review approval. For the second case, there's 3 conditions. Prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process. 2, the applicant shall install an architectural wall or fence a minimum of 36 inches in height around the perimeter of the parking area that fronts Highway 17 North. The planning director shall review and approve the wall or fence design before installation and prior to site plan review approval. And 3, the 50-foot right-of-way buffer from Highway 17 North shall be installed and maintained as required by ordinance. Do you have any questions?
I'm going to start this time, Mr. Neal. Thank you, Ms. Working. This is a lot different than what we had 2 years ago, to some degree. Am I correct?
Well, this is an addition to the field, the
Yeah.
phase 2. So it's a different property adjacent to the
Correct.
corner.
Yeah.
So nothing's changed in phase 1. This is just.
Can you talk to me about this little knee wall that's going to be on Highway 17?
Yeah, this is a carryover from
From the first?
the other one so that it would be continuous. Well, not continuous. Obviously, you have the entrance, but so it would be, can't think of a word.
Continuation?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is on the variance request for the 75-foot right-of-way landscape buffer. What is go to whichever site plan you need to. Explain to me why this request is for. What's causing this request? Is it because the field is coming out so far, or is it a buffer? I mean, what's?
I think it's the parking, correct, Sally? Yeah, parking.
I believe they want to kind of match what they have on the adjacent property, so that's why they've asked for it.
That makes sense to me. Parking, if that's what it is. And then the wall requirement that you're putting in, that you're suggesting in staff comments, that's a continuation of a phase 1 stuff?
Right, and I guess what I was trying to say was like, of course, the entrance to the thing, you wouldn't have a wall, but it would just, make it look like one project.
One project instead of 2 phase lines. You want
Right.
one thing. Okay, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. You have anything? Anyone on my left? No? Well, thank you, staff. I appreciate that. Miss Working. Thank you. All right, gentlemen. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application, and welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Trip Moy. My address is 2302 Goldbog Avenue, Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. I'm here tonight as we seek 3 variances on Phase 2. I don't think too many times in front of a committee like yourself where somebody has spent the last 4 years trying to really bring a recreation amenity to Charleston County to benefit all residents. As I've said, for the last 2.5, almost 3 years now, we've been spearheading this project. I'm very, very excited. I was here last March, and we broke ground last week on Phase 1, which will be 3 soccer fields. Couldn't be more excited about that. As some of y'all might know, desperate need in Charleston County of just rectangular field space for kids. So I'm here tonight. We have 3 variance requests, and I have my civil engineer and site consultant who will address some of the specific technical questions. The one that was just raised, I think there needs to be just a little bit of clarity on that, the reason for the difference between the 50 foot and 75 feet. But I'm a volunteer board president of a local youth soccer club. I had 3 kids that had the privilege of playing soccer, 2 daughters and a son, and I saw desperate need. I grew up east of the Cooper. I'm a 40-year-plus Charleston County resident, and just this town has grown tremendously over the last 30 years, the last 10 years. And the need for rectangular field space is in desperate need. I've been driving my daughters to Charleston Southern or to Cathedral Appraisal and Ashley Phosphate for the last 3 years. So I took a challenge. Everybody thought I was crazy. I would dedicate my personal volunteer time to try to make this a reality. As you know, it's very hard to find land in Charleston that doesn't have a wetland or a grand tree issue that will accommodate a soccer field. It's not like I can just reduce soccer fields. There are a certain level of size that need to be, that we can play games on. And I came across Mr. McCaskill. His family had owned this 104 acres for 50 plus years. They've been approached by countless developers over the last several years to develop this. And it was important to their family that they found the right buyer who would do something for the community. And I'm proud to say I'm that buyer. I would think that the McCaskill family would reiterate my passion for this project since the day they met me. My relentless to raise the private dollars to see this through in a very, very challenging capital market environment that's been the last 2 years. This project is a significant investment that will benefit Charleston County residents. I've spent countless hours navigating these process, and I'm excited. Tonight we're talking about a tree removal that is a very, very, makes this project very, very, it's a hardship, and I'm asking for y'all's consideration. On Phase 1, we saved every healthy grand tree, and I think on this Phase 2 here, there's 20 grand trees that we've worked around, and we're talking about one that we're asking to be removed. This whole entire project is being done through a charitable foundation. If any of you looked at building a rectangular soccer field that's going to work with mostly youth, etc., it does not make zero economic sense. This is purely for the benefit of the county and its residents. And I simply had a vision 4 years ago to do this and to see this reality. And I'm excited to see this through. I ask for your consideration. Tonight specifically, we're asking for this overflow parking. We had spent tremendous time with county staff initially. The reason this parking is now part of this Phase 2 is just because there's different zoning. So the staff was aware of this, and this is what the solution was. I did bring a copy, if you want to pass these out, just to remind everybody what Phase 1 was that was unanimously approved last March. And Phase 2 is this additional parking and 1 grass soccer field to the far right. Tonight, I have followed up with my civil engineer again to answer any technical questions and 1 or 2 people to speak on behalf. I also have the owner of the Charleston Battery, who's just coming off one of the biggest turns around in professional USL history, Mr. Rob Salvatore, and he's here to speak as well. So if I have any questions or...
Okay, thank you so very much. Mr. Williams has a question for you.
Yes, sir. Just looking at some of these opposition letters here from some residents. And so my question is, you have Phase 1. When you came in front of the board before, you all had the concept of a soccer field, and you want to have stuff, activities for the kids and all that. And now you're coming with a phase 2, and you want more parking and all these other things. How do you go from phase 1 in front of us? We approved that. Now you're back again for additional variances and tree removals. How do you go from one to the other? Did you tell us there was a phase 2 when you came before?
I can't recall if I said there was a phase 2, but we did, when we met with staff, these were 2 large parcels of property that I've had under contracts since day one. We discussed that. In fact, I'm not a developer. The reason that I even found out about the additional parking was at one of the first kind of county meetings. We just sat down and said, here, I'm working on this property. Here's what we're thinking about trying to do. What are going to be some of the challenges that I need to kind of work through and be aware of? And that's when we talked about the different zonings, and we kind of had the guidance of 2 people in that office that walked through and said, you're going to probably need to do it this way. But always the thought would be to try to do something on a recreational amenity front here.
Right. So when you came in front of BZA in the past, I was here on the board. We had no idea. You didn't bring the plans for additional parking and all those things. You were sharing that there would be some fields, and there was an open field grass area and all these different things. So my concern is just that you're coming back to the board as if, retroactively rather than planning, considering the zoning that already exists. That's my concern.
I mean, I wouldn't say that was my intent. I mean, quite frankly, I've been raising private dollars to do this. I didn't know how far, would be the excitement. It wasn't really until I came across Mr. Salvador, really this, he was aware of what I was working on in phase 1, but, the idea of what his needs are, those conversations really started in late this fall. Obviously, that's when the conversations really kind of manifested, and we came into this design here. This is, it's a grass soccer field.
So the parking area exists to the left in phase 1, right? And then how big is this parking area that you're proposing? I didn't look at the numbers yet, but
I think it said 134 spaces.
134 spaces additionally, right?
Yep. Yep. And there's,
Okay, thank you. That's my question. Thanks.
Just a couple quick questions. So we got through phase 1, and now we're here for phase 2. Are you envisioning a phase 3 where you're going to be coming back for additional soccer fields? That's one question. And the other question, because I can't remember from phase 1, is just to make sure there are no any harmful impacts to the community in terms of noise, lights, and those kinds of things from the field.
Fair question.
Is that a question to me? Mm-hmm. There's, so right, we have not spent any time designing future phases. There's roughly an 80 or 90 acres left here. Obviously, we have wetlands and grain trees to work through. We would like to most likely consider that at some point. Maybe that's future down the road. I mean, obviously, what's been put into this has taken 4 years of volunteer, countless hours, and raised significant private dollars to do something. There's a foundation that wants to protect and work with the sellers of this property, not to see additional residential housing and types of developments. I think this first phase could have been a gas station, a repairs place, a flea market. Could have been a lot of different things. It was important to kind of do something for the community here.
Okay, that answers your questions? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my fellow chairman's points about phase 1 and phase 2, but I'm trying to focus on phase 2. I mean, phase 1 has already been permitted, phase 1. So I think her question about lighting in phase 3 is a very valid question to see the entire scope of this project. But I'm trying to focus on the parking and what we have in front of us here, and how you're using this property. obviously it's been successful or is planned to be very successful, and somebody's telling you to add more parking, or you would have added some snack bars, or you would have added some different stuff out there or whatever. So obviously the emphasis is on parking. Why have you added this much parking, and why will this concept help you?
I mean, listen, we have 3 soccer fields in Phase 1. Those will be used for, kids that play in this community. And, we felt like that was adequate to have additional parking there. And then, obviously adding this field number 4 would help. Would probably most likely require some additional parking. It would be helpful to have. Typically, you have occasionally where with kids playing, sometimes you might have a mom and a dad come in separate times.
Right, I understand that.
So we just wanted to make sure. I mean, obviously, recognize a lot of places you go to. If you were to go to Carolina, at Carolina Park or Patriots Point, which is where, Patriots Point, there's cars parked along all of those
on the sidewalks and everywhere.
and main roads. I mean, obviously, we would like to avoid that, and so, we felt some additional parking would be suffice.
All right, so my last follow-up is, I don't know if you have a slide that shows it. So we're really focusing on the 3 variances, the 1 for the tree, the 2 for the encroachment, and then you've got the landscape buffer. Whenever your engineer speaks, I'll ask my question about the landscape buffer.
Okay.
But where is the tree on this, when you just gave us this nice, that I appreciate the Phase 1, Phase 2 look, where is the tree that you're trying to remove? Where is it in general location?
It would be, is
it on the field, or is it in the parking area?
it's on the field. It's basically, if you're looking at field 4, on the left-hand side, it's about halfway between the end line and the half-line mark. About halfway, about a third in from the top part of the page.
So you've looked at other options trying to save the tree by a different layout, and this is the only layout you could really get another field on this parcel.
Yes, sir. I mean, in fact, I think I'm right. 19 or 20 grand trees we have saved on this parcel. There's just this one tree that's right there. If you look where the wetlands are to kind of the top of the field, and then to where the setbacks are, and then there's so it's just made it challenging. We've tried to orient it the best way we can to explore that.
Have you gone any further down to where you think you're going to mitigate by the tree bank or mitigate by putting trees out on site? Any thought yet?
I'll let my engineer answer, but I think the plan has always been to replace the amount of trees. I mean, we're planning to plant a lot of trees out here. I mean, it's important for us to kind of do a first-class facility here.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, sir. Good questions. Good questions. I'm sorry, I just kind of got it in my gut to ask the question. Who's your target audience other than just general Mount Pleasant? Are you going to target the high schools and middle schools as well?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a handful of options. Obviously the youth for sure will be using our fields for kids from all over Charleston County. Obviously, there's a great demand for east of the Cooper residents for sure. But listen, our soccer club has partnered with an after-school program called Kids on Point, which is taking kids from downtown under-resourced. This is our 3rd year in a row now that we've ran a summer program of teaching kids who have never played the game of soccer how to play the game of soccer. One of our support letters are from 2 executive directors that I've worked very close with over the last 15 years of trying to make a difference in this community. I have traded emails with the owner and founder of Wynwood Farms, which is one of the last resorts, Jody Tamsberg. We're scheduled to meet in the coming weeks. He's aware of what we're doing here. His family home that he gave to that foundation. I think they see 50 kids that basically get kicked out of high school.
Yeah.
Wando varsity and JV soccer team, which is only a few miles from here, they practice actually at Moultrie Middle School. So those kids leave every day from Wando High School, and travel to Moultrie to practice because of lack of rectangular field space. I have not had the conversation with Wando yet, but there's definitely a conversation at some point that we'll sit down and work with Charleston County School District to see if we can utilize these fields and work in some conjunction. So there's a lot of things that we see these fields using. But at the end of the day, it's be an amenity to Charleston County.
So are these just practice fields, or are you looking to host games there?
Oh, that'll be both. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then, you know, like on Field 4, Mr. Salvatore is here tonight. He can talk a little more specifically because he has some visions for Field 4.
I guess I was just looking for stadium seating and.
No, there's no stadium seating plan.
spectators, I
Right,
guess.
on here for sure.
Okay. Mr. Jordan?
So when you mention reaching out downtown, which downtown you talking about?
The city of Charleston downtown, there's an organization called Kids on Point. I've sat on that fundraising and strategic
Talking about the
committee.
Peninsula?
Yes, but we've just opened up a satellite location in North Charleston this past August, and we're hoping to grow that to 50 students as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Small?
Just one final question. With the additional parking, it looks like you have 2 entrance and exit points for these fields. Is that going to be sufficient to move traffic in and out of there?
I'll let my engineer answer that. I mean, I know we worked in conjunction with the DOT.
And again, as you're considering, you know, maybe moving beyond a phase 2, I mean, I guess those are issues that will come up either with the county or with DOT, but just something I'm thinking of in my mind.
Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Williams?
One other question. Where are those
Thank you.
other trees located at that are going to have 25% encroachment on? Do you know? Like, is it on the
Yeah,
field or is it on the parking lot?
Bob, can you wait for his question?
We'll wait.
I'm pretty sure I know what they are, but I'd rather him answer them.
Okay, we'll wait. We'll come back for that for you, Mr. Williams. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you so very much for your
All right,
testimony.
really appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Bob Almerall with Revere Group, 1421 Appling Drive, Mount Pleasant. Thank you for allowing our team to present to you tonight. I want to try to cover some of the board members' questions first, and then
Please.
hopefully I can come back and answer any other questions that you might have. In regard to the phasing and the master planning, and I've been doing this for a long time. I've been a civil engineer since 1986, and I can tell you that when we do these master plans, 98% of the time the master plan changes by the time we get to that next phase. So best laid plans type thing, right? Markets change, everything changes. So we have looked at what potential use of the site may be, but to get to the level of detail to come in front of this board and specifically ask for a tree to be encroached upon or to remove a significant tree in Charleston County, we take very seriously. So although there may have been ideas of what may happen in the future, there was never enough detail that I ever would have felt comfortable coming to this board and asking for permission to take down a tree when I didn't really know what the detailed engineering or the grading was going to look like. So I apologize if that came across as being disingenuous in any way in our first presentation. As far as the buffer, Mr. Neal, as far as your question there, if you do look at the plan, it is a little hard to tell. I don't know, Jenny, if you can show the one with the actual soccer field on there. If that field would be shifted due north 25 feet, it would go straight into the wetlands to the north. You can see the wetlands buffer. I tried to turn this 90 degrees. I shifted it to the right. You can see we have grand trees right on the right side or the north side. If I shifted it to the west and put it where that parking lot was, I got into more grand trees. So really this was the optimal location to minimize the number of trees that were impacted. In regard to the trees for the encroachment, all of those are located on that diagonal. So the far left-hand side, which is the boundary between phase 1 and phase 2. There's actually, if you go out there today or if you look at Google Earth, there's historically been a farm access road there. There's access off of Highway 17 that's been traveled upon. I'm sure Mr. Caskell could tell me how long, but for a very long time. And so what's unique about this request, in my mind, for these encroachments into these trees, a lot of times when we're looking at it, it's how much of an impact are we putting to the drip line or to the root zone of a tree. In this particular case, what we have is an existing compacted road that has been used for years and years. And what we tried very hard is to put, so the encroachment that we're talking about is a 5-foot wide sidewalk that connects from phase 1 to phase 2. So it's not a road, it's not a pond, it's not additional parking, it's just a walking path, but it's being situated in the vast majority of the location over top of the existing compacted road. And
Could we see the slide that he's talking about while he's talking about this encroachment? Because there should be an exhibit or something that's showing the encroachment percentage or something. Could you reference that while you're?
no, I think, Jenny, that. Okay, so yeah, that one. So, and I don't have a laser pointer. I apologize, but
We have a pointer. Can you let him use your pointer, Ms. Worker?
so these trees.
Microphone.
I figured I wouldn't be able to see it from that far. All right, there we go. So these trees right here, these are the grand trees that are being impacted by the encroachment. And so in phase 1, so it's an extension of a sidewalk from phase 1 that will come through in that area. And if you look at our site plan, that sidewalk has kind of a 90-degree bend. It comes up and then it turns down, and that's because it's following the geometry of the alignment of that old roadway. And I can speak to the fact that when I met the county arborist on site to evaluate these trees, we stood in that location and I asked him, I said, I'm trying to have the least impact on these trees, and we're not, really what damages a lot of these trees is when you compact the soil and the roots can't get the water or the nutrients that they need. Again, this area has been compacted for 50 plus years. So when I stood there with Mr. Foster, the county arborist, I asked the question, I said, do you believe that the alignment that I'm showing would be the least impactful for these existing grand trees, or do you have any other alternative recommendations? Mr. Foster said, no, I think what you have is going to be the least impactful because you're utilizing that road bed wherever you can. So I apologize, Mr. Neal, that you can't see that specifically on there.
Do you know what the grade is for those trees that you're trying to remove? Did Mr. Foster, well, I know he gave you the grades of those trees.
It's just one tree, right?
Just that one.
A single tree, yes, sir. It's a B tree.
B.
Yes, sir. And let me highlight that one, Mr. Chairman. It's this tree right here. Any other questions on that topic, or I can keep going down the list?
Okay, Mr. Williams?
Yes, sir. So,
Yes, sir.
So you are putting in a sidewalk right in that location, and that's why the tree has to be removed? Is that?
No, sir. There's no tree removals over there. This is just the encroachment of greater than
Encroaching on that tree.
25%.
That's the 20, okay, that's the
Right,
encroachment.
but we're really not, when you look at that and say, well, you're impacting 40% of the tree, that doesn't mean we're damaging 40% of the tree. It means we're putting a sidewalk under what used to be a roadway. We're really not impacting the tree, but I guess I don't want to say that.
Is that a pervious sidewalk or?
No, it'll be a concrete sidewalk, but only 5 feet wide. The road that's out there today is about 12 foot wide, and we're putting in a 5 foot wide concrete sidewalk.
Okay.
Let's see, I did talk about this. Oh, the site access, I think there was a question about that. There are still, this parking lot does go into phase 1, and then there's 2 site access points for phase 1, and I know this map doesn't show it. So this particular parking lot has 2 ways in and out. And then back to the question of the timing. When we met with staff a year and a half ago, Mr. Moya did ask if we could put this additional parking. Yeah, he anticipated that this parking was needed, and for those of you that ever dealt with youth soccer, there's one thing to say, here's how much parking we need, But what you have is the crossover between games, right? So you got the parents who are showing up with their kids to warm up and get ready, but the other parents haven't left for the last game. And it's that crossover that requires the additional parking. So we always envisioned having additional parking for that, not necessarily by the code amount. The problem was this being in an Ag 10 zone and Phase 1 being in the overlay, staff indicated we could not just put a secondary use on this site without rezoning the property. And so that's how it ended up being part of Phase 2 as opposed to part of Phase 1. In regard, sir, to the question about the tree mitigation, we do in the parking lot that we're proposing, it will be mostly a gravel parking lot, but there will be landscape islands. And so the tree mitigation for that 27-inch tree that we're requesting permission would be done via the trees that are being planted in the islands.
Okay. Any more questions?
One.
Yes, sir.
Are you fine with what staff has made as additional recommendations for each of the variances, adhering to both of those, the list of 5 things for the first variance and the list of, I think, 3 with the wall continuation?
Yes, sir. So the fence wall is an extension of the Phase 1 that was agreed to, and we're fine with extending that across. I did clarify with Ms. Brooks and Ms. Working today a concern that I had about the wording of one of those conditions. It states that, I think it's condition 5, it states that an arborist would be responsible for evaluating or monitoring all trees on site. And I was concerned that the word all trees on site could be interpreted as the couple hundred that go up into the site. And so I was asking if we could clarify that condition to be within the project area, and staff did clarify that via an email to me today that that was the intent of that, but that was the one concern I did have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for clarification.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Good point. Thank you for that observation, too, and I'm glad staff took care of that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in support of this application? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jack Daniels. I'm with Middle Street Residential. My address is 4 Carriage Lane, Suite 205, Charleston 29407.
I'm sorry, I didn't get past Jack Daniels, and maybe because it's after 5 o'clock. You with who again?
I'm with Middle Street Residential. I'm the land development consultant, and my address is 4 Carriage Lane, Suite 205, Charleston 29407. So I'm a residential land developer. We build subdivisions for a living. We're a very small, nimble group, and Mr. Moy contacted us about a year and a half ago and said, I want to build soccer fields. And I said, you mean a subdivision, right? And he said, no, I want to build a soccer field. And I said, well, you know, this would be a great place for townhouses or apartments. And he said, no, I want to build a soccer field. I said, okay, well, we'll you know, good luck finding a place in Charleston where you can put a 300-foot by 200-foot soccer field without impacting wetlands or grand trees. And Tripp said, I think I have one. And I said, well, before we actually go any further, let me see what you're talking about, because there's not a place in Charleston that doesn't have a grand tree or a wetland the size of a soccer field or a football field. And lo and behold, Mr. Moy found the perfect site. I mean, it is in the heart of, you know, where, you know, this kind of activity is needed, or these fields are needed, and it's a former agricultural site. The Phase 1 was incredibly difficult. We packed a lot into Phase 1, 3 soccer fields, a lot of parking. There's going to be a septic drain field. And Phase 2 is basically the continuation of that thought. It is additional parking. It is additional grass soccer field. And it's 222 feet by 360 feet. It's not like we can have a tree in the center of it. It's not like we can just nip the corner of it off. It has to be a contiguous rectangle. There's not many places in all of Charleston County where there is not a grand tree or wetlands that you can put something that size. So Revere did a fantastic job of manipulating the parking and the soccer field. And I'm really proud to say, with 20 grand trees on this kind of acreage, we're only impacting one 27-inch red oak. And I think that's a pretty phenomenal feat for the engineer to be able to do that. So I'm in huge support of this project. We've spent a great deal of time and effort manipulating this field and these parking every which way possible. And thank you for your time.
Let's see if anyone has a question for you, please. Anyone on my right? On my
Yes,
left?
sir.
Mr. Williams?
I do have a question. We're having to look at these criteria like number 6. The need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. Why not just stay with phase one?
Why not stick with just the three fields
Just
that are in
phase one, yeah, because the applicant's deciding to add additional parking and all these other things and other, why not just do phase one? You know, because that's the decision the applicant's making, right?
I think the vision has always been to have a soccer field, soccer complex, if you will. And a complex insinuates more than just a field. There is such a great need. We could build a dozen fields out here, and I still don't think we'd fit the need in the Tri-County area for soccer fields. So I think this fourth field is the natural progression of that, and the parking associated with it is needed.
Any other questions? Thank you so very much for your
Thank you.
testimony. Anyone else? We're going to go through the whole room, I guess.
You got some good supporters.
Tell me something different now, other than your name and address.
I'll try Ben Corin. Address is 1420 Shucker Circle. And I'll be quick. I did not come prepared with snacks like you all. So
Where do you live?
Mount Pleasant, 1420 Shucker Circle. And so, again, don't have snacks like you all. So I'm hungry, so I'm trying to get out of here. So I'll be quick.
Microphone.
Yep. But so why am I relevant? Well, I spent, let's call it 8 years of my life coaching college basketball. And now kind of in my, call it retired ages, I spend my volunteer time coaching high school basketball.
Pick the mic up a little bit, please.
Here in Charleston County over at Lucy Beckham. And, you know, obviously everybody said there's a huge need for rectangular fields. Obviously my sport of choice is basketball. I spend a lot of time, you know, specifically with basketball, but all my friends are in coaching around town and they're all complaining we don't have enough field space. Kids don't have somewhere to play. And, you know, so this helps satisfy that need. You know, obviously we have 3 fields on the way. This gives you a 4th option. You know, so I think it's just a tremendous positive impact on our community. So look forward to hearing your guys' ruling, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Rob Salvatore. My address is 310 Broad Street in Charleston, 29401. And as Tripp alluded to, I own the battery, I own the team. I was here before you guys, whenever that was, March of last year. So I don't think we need to go around the horn again on why specifically the project's been incredible. But I will say to the question that Mr. Williams posed of a 4th field, that does relate to us. So when I bought the team, the prior owner had sold the land on Daniel Island. That is why we moved the team to Patriots Point. It was a little bit of a shotgun. And we had to build that facility out to meet the standards of our league, which are certain size field and certain size stadium. One thing we didn't really consider when we got going was where's the team going to practice. We didn't know if we'd practice on the stadium pitch. We share that field with the men's and women's college programs for College of Charleston. We currently practice adjacent on what is referred to as Field 1 of the soccer complex down there. We share that field with the men's and women's program, and we also share it with the town of Mount Pleasant Rec and club teams that from time to time host tournaments and other activities there. It's also old guys like me that play in leagues and people who jump over the fence and play on it. So it's pretty crowded. I'd like to think that the club, the battery, the professional team, is a wonderful community asset. It's obviously not just entertainment. It's all the tax we generate through the revenue. We inspire the kids. And we've built out a wonderful facility down there using our private capital. But we have asked one thing of those teams down there, and that's to share their space with us. It's pretty easy for us to work that out on game night, Saturday nights when we host our games, 17 games a year. That's the easy part. Monday through Friday, when we're on that field, we have the college students, college athletes practice during the day, and it gets a lot of use through them, and then it gets really beat up from the rec activities. If there's a field like Field 4, we would be interested in hosting our practices there Monday through Friday. That would get us off at Patriots Point. There's no commercial activities that go along with us practicing. It happens 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday or Saturday or Sunday, depending on when we play our games. But practice is quiet. It's our workbench. That'd be an unbelievable place to do it. And in doing so, we would really, really reduce the burden that we put on those fields. We ask a lot of the town of Mount Pleasant to hold off some activities, only put younger kids on it. And again, the student athletes share with us. So Matt Roberts, who's the director of athletics for the College of Charleston, we work very closely together. They've been great partners, but they're highly supportive of this happening to get us out of there. And Eric DeMora, who's the city manager for the town of Mount Pleasant, who I'm sure you all know, it's the same thing. They've been incredibly accommodative because they want the Battery to be there. They want it to be on Patriots Point. We hosted the USL Championship there this past November. We unfortunately lost in penalty kicks, but it was on national broadcast, and it was an unbelievable commercial for what's going on in Patriots Point. It must have been mentioned millions of times, millions of impressions. So, again, we think we make a pretty broad impact on the community in a lot of different ways, plus all the civic things that we support. But this would be a wonderful development for us. And again, in terms of the question about the neighborhood and all that, our guys would be in there at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. There's no commercial activities that go along with training. And we also think, for the youth who would be adjacent to it, to practice next to the highest level professional team in the state would be a pretty cool thing. In all of those teams and clubs in the game that we support. So, happy to answer any questions specifically about it, but that's how we see it from our perspective.
Oh, very good. I appreciate your efforts and your team. Mr. Neal?
Yeah, I just want to follow up. I mean, I'm not a soccer player or a soccer dad, but I would think that the positivity of connecting youth soccer with the professional program would be just unbelievable positive energy for the community, because these kids get to see, hey, this is what I want to aspire to be, instead of you fitting in your commercial activity with the College of Charleston and everything else. I mean, this is community, as one of the people said earlier, that they were trying to make a point for this variance to be for the greater good. This really is for the greater good of the community, correct?
Yeah, I think the overall project and what these gentlemen have done and the people who are providing the capital for it's pretty incredible. I think if we're adjacent to it, just the aura of having a professional team around it will give it a little boost. And then in terms of what we're doing more broadly in the community, we do that on Saturday night, right? For 8 or 9 months during the year. And we'll still hold some practices and stuff down on Patriots Point. We do that. We have open practices. Our coaches are very comfortable with that. We still want to be the inspiration. But I think getting out of there, it allows the complex on Patriots Point to have a lot, less wear and tear. And, as a professional club, we really beat it up. The guys are out there a couple hours a day. So, I think it in a way, it kind of expands our reach a little bit, and it is better especially for the college athletes too, who have really, really been accommodating to us.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
I appreciate your clarity. So how are you connected with this development, the group?
Not formally, maybe as a prospective user of the space. And I would say, as I testified when I was here last year, a lot of ways I'm the nexus of the game in town, right? We're the highest level team in the state. So the kids are always around us, whether they play for clubs. But I have no commercial relationship. I'm not one of the funders of it.
No, just whatever the connection was. That's what I was wondering about. I appreciate your
Yeah, but we would,
that you
to be very clear, just so it's on the record, the Battery would be very interested in using one of the fields out here.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your testimony.
All set?
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Did I go through the whole crowd? Okay, so you want to tell me something different now? Okay.
There's two different.
Good evening. My name is Perry Rourke, 2004 Brick Kiln Parkway, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Again, Mr. Chair and most of the board, thank you for staying so late tonight and giving me the opportunity to speak. I didn't get a chance to get an email in. I also serve on a Recreation Advisory Commission for the town of Mount Pleasant. So I firsthand know what Mr. Salvatore is talking about. The fields at Patriots Point, for example, if the Battery wasn't needing to use those, it would also free up use for more Mount Pleasant residents of that facility. and talking about the wear and the resting that was required of our field facilities and how we have to keep kids off of field facilities in the town of Mount Pleasant to allow for growing seasons and other things. Any more facilities that can be obtained in the East of Cooper area is going to be a huge asset for the town of Mount Pleasant. I can assure you that, and the residents. I bring a little different perspective. I've had the opportunity to know the family that owns this land for probably since I was about 6 years old, and for about the past 25 years, they've given me the opportunity to actually hunt and fish on this property. And so it's a double-edged sword for me. I've got 2 boys that play youth soccer. I serve on a commission for the town about recreation. But I hate to see that land go away from me. But as a steward of that land and user of that land for 25 years, I can tell you this family is very conservative oriented. To see less urban sprawl going up in that area of town and not seeing more houses, townhouses, commercial development, gas stations, and to see this facility actually being used for recreational purposes, hopefully the rest of all of our lives, and used for this purpose and for our kids and for our youth, I don't think there could be a better use of the land. I don't think the family could have found a better partner. I commend Mr. Moy for what he has done, trying to find funding. And again, they brought up the different phases. I hope he can continue to develop more recreational use to keep this land natural for the residents and for the people in the county of Charleston. So, and it's very difficult to find people willing to donate the money to help make these things happen. So I commend him for continuing to try to make the best use of the land and preserve it for years to come for a lot of enjoyment for the people in our town. So again, I appreciate your opportunity to speak tonight, and I hope you will seriously consider giving them the variances they're requesting. As again, he stated, my son is a JV soccer player at Wando High School, and he goes from North Mount Pleasant, we live in Rivertown, and he drives all the way to Moultrie Middle School on Coleman Boulevard to practice 3 times, 4 times a week. So to be able to open up more facilities, it reduces the traffic burden, which is another big problem for us in town of Mount Pleasant, keeping some people in that end of town, reducing a little bit of traffic burden as well. And I think it's just a great use for the land. Trust me, I'm going to miss not being able to hunt it and fish it, but I couldn't ask for a better use for myself for 25 years of using it to see what's going to happen to it. And
That's just great.
yes, so thank you all again.
Thank you so very much. Let's see, are we good on questions?
Any questions?
Thank you so very much for your time. Thank you for your participation with the community as well. Anyone else? All right, anyone to speak in opposition? Y'all all spoke in favor. Okay, so at this time, I'll close it to the public. At this time, board members, do we have any questions of staff? Any general discussion? All right, Mr. Truslow.
All right, I make a motion that we approve this application in reference to 11-23-00733. I think it'll be the same analysis basically as for 3-4 that Mr. Neal may add to this, but I would move to approve this. This is an applicant is Trip Moy of GBSC. The property is at 5116 Highway 17 North. It's near Garrins Ferry Road as you go out to Paradise Island. There are variances for grand tree removals and for some encroachment. The zoning district is agricultural. It's been properly noticed. The applicable ordinances, and I'm saying these for the record, we all know these. If someone were to complain, we'd have a clear record. I know y'all know this. The applicable ordinances contained in Charleston County Ordinance 9 and specifically 9.2.5.b. It provides authority for the relief being requested according to the criteria that are set forth in Code Section 3.10.6, 1 through 7. The matter's been thoroughly investigated. We've heard from you before, and you did a fine job before. You did a fine job this time. Again, this was thoroughly investigated. We've considered everything. I think everybody knows we get this data beforehand. We even have a lawyer to advise us. And we've got some very skilled people that have looked into this. We've reviewed the photographs, the plats, the law, and all relevant information. This is basically, as I understand it, a 3.6 acre tract for designed for a soccer field complex. We're aware of the prior application in March, and we would take, I would use the word judicial notice of what occurred before, because we've all had it before us, and I would incorporate that by reference. I would include the findings and conclusions therein. This is a laudatory goal by well-intended people. It's not that profit's wrong at all. It's the American way, but this is truly a charitable thing for the benefit of our children and for our community, and also for green space. It's designed, again, to protect the public. Notably, and it's very persuasive that the owner of the property has supported this, and I find that to be very compelling and persuasive. The reasons, again, I incorporate the reasons that are set forth in the criteria in 3.10.6. There are extraordinary conditions that have been well described regarding the tree, almost in the center of one of the fields. It's a red oak. According to the evidence, all the alternatives have been considered, and this is the best choice available. There's as little disturbance as possible, and where it occurs, it appears to be beneficial to the public. There's a wetland that would impact and makes this a unique property that covers number 1 and number 2. I would incorporate the response relative to the walking path and restroom availability. Number 4 is basically the same analysis. Number 5 is self-explanatory because it meets all criteria and the use is permitted and allowed, and we're very happy to approve this request. Again, this is in the community's best interest, and it's a unique piece of property and a unique opportunity available for everyone. Number 6 is, and then we have 7, and I'll just go through those and then I'll be done. The request is based on the condition of the land and not because of what the applicant has done. In golf terms, you'd say you play them as they lie, and you've done an excellent job with excellent people supporting you to come up with the best plan possible. Again, this is a tremendous benefit for the community. It doesn't conflict with the comprehensive plan, and I have no compunction or no reservations about approving this, provided that the recommendations as set forth by staff 1 through 5 are adhered to with the understanding that we're not asking that all trees be related, but only the ones that would be subject to loss of a word. Sir?
In the subject area.
Only in the subject area, not all trees verbatim. And that would be my motion.
I'll second.
And I would incorporate, if to the degree possible, if it assists, the same. I would have gone through the same analysis for 3.4 as I would for 3.3. If our attorney is convinced that we need to restate those, we would. But I don't know that it's necessary.
No.
Thank you.
Good.
So.
All right, any discussion? Any question?
Is the motion for both, motion for approval is for both variances?
Yes.
Two
And
separate votes.
Two separate votes?
There's reasoning.
Okay, the reasoning's
is
fine.
the same for each.
Right.
Okay,
So the first, you're going to do it that way. Thank you. The first motion, a vote will be for 733. Okay? Any questions about 733?
Discussion.
Then discussion. Nope. You have the motion, been properly moved and second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Raise your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Second one is 734. Any discussion? We're going to say, wait, let me back up. Do I have a second for that?
Yeah, I'll second the motion, or go ahead.
For both? Okay, Ms. Smalls, any discussion on 734? None. All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Raise your right hand. Aye. Okay, yeah. It's unanimous. Thank you. So within the next 10 days, Staff will contact you on both applications, letting you know the next process and next steps in the process. All right.
So
Ms.
your
Workin?
yeah, your next meeting is February 5th. We do have 9 new business cases. It is, like tonight, you know how we only had 3 properties, 3 projects. February would be 4 properties and projects, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. That's why I'm giving you that information, so you know it's not.
Mr. Chair?
5
That'll be
o'clock.
fine. When are we going to have our, oh, it's March.
March, and
Yeah.
March will definitely start at 5 no matter what, because the public hearing, because we're gonna have to meet earlier for our training and. Yes, so,
5.
yeah.
Any more questions?
And then just a reminder that you're good for last year, but this year is.
New Year's now.
New year.
Yeah, everybody's clean
When are we
start.
doing the simulation?
Means adjourned. Thank you.
Nice job, thank you.
Bye.
All right, thank you.
Drive safely, folks.
So long.
Catch that game. I see you on the
Good to see you.
run.
Good to see you.
Where's our friend that's not here?